That was Frankie Lane singing Rawhide, and what a voice that man had. Rawhide was one of the top shows on in the 50s and 60s, and our guest tonight was on that show. And, you know, I've been very blessed to talk to some very amazing people, from artists to zoologists, scientists, you name it, I've talked to them. But I was very honored to do this interview with Ann Robinson. And everybody who is a sci-fi geek like myself is going to remember her from War of the Worlds with Gene Barry. And when I did this interview, it gave us a little trouble at first. Hopefully, it'll be picture perfect this time, and I'm just going to get into it. And I hope you enjoy this fascinating woman who has a legacy in film and on television that young actors and actresses today, I think, would be very jealous of. So I hope you guys have enjoyed tonight's show. Ann Robinson, welcome to my lair.
Hello.
Hello, Ann. I'm going to try it again. We're live, by the way. We had a bit of a sound glitch, and I need somebody to tell me if the sound is okay now. If it's better, I don't know why it was echoing. But you did Rawhide. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you were talking about echo chamber because I just heard from my son in Hoboken, New Jersey, and he said he was listening to the Jaime Bravo. He was listening to the broadcast, and he said, yes, it did sound like we were in an echo chamber.
Okay. We're good now.
Rawhide.
The boss is telling me it's okay. I will edit it and everything, so the podcast will be perfect. So you were on Rawhide, and we were talking about Rawhide and how wonderful an experience it was. I have a clip from Rawhide, and you're a bit of you're a nice girl in it. You're a nice girl. But when this Aztec Indian comes to you claiming to be your father or something, you're a princess, you kind of make fun of him in this clip, right?
Yes. That all sort of confused me, too, that I'm supposed to be descended from the feather god serpent, with a feather god, Quetzalcoatl. And I never quite understood that. But it was fun to do. I'm going up the hill and being shot in the back by an arrow, by an Indian with an arrow in my back. I have a photograph of that.
Yeah. Who was the actor that played your father?
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I do not remember. I haven't seen that show in such a very long time. I don't have it on film. Good God, it's been a long time.
Oh, yeah. I know his face, and I cannot remember it, but that's okay.
Well, I'm sure if I could see I would remember his face also. I remember his name, too, but I don't recall it at all. Yeah,
it was a great series, and I've had Beverly Washburn on, and I've had, a lot of actresses on, and the way you keep alive in between films is by doing TV shows and commercials and whatever pays the bills, right?
Exactly. Well, the whole you want to get your pension. You have to work a certain length of time and make a certain amount of money each year for 10 consecutive years to be eligible for your pension and your medical insurance, and that's worth its weight in gold. And right. I was very lucky. I worked continuously for exactly about 13 and a half years. In enough time to made enough money and in that length of time to get a pension and your medical insurance with the Screen Actors Guild. I was most fortunate. A lot of people aren't as lucky as I was.
Yeah, I want to apologize to everybody that the first little bit has an echo type of thing. Hopefully I'm going to be able to fix that. But we are talking with Ann Robinson, who is a veteran actress. She is an amazing career. I have to bring it back up again. You've been working steady for what now, 50 years?
Well, let's see. I've got my SAG card in 1949. So I'm sort of a veteran with the Screen Actors Guild. And, no, I got that screen. It says my son reminded me. I was most fortunate. I started out as an extra, and I was able to get a Screen Actors Guild card as a stunt girl and get into acting. I was very, very lucky. But I've been working pretty steadily until I ran off to Mexico and married the bullfighter and had 2 boys. I worked all the time. I was most fortunate.
Let me ask you something. You were raised in California. We're going to go over some things because I don't want to put the echo part in and people don't hear it. You were born and raised in Hollywood. Your father was a banker there.
Yes.
You learned to ride horses when you were like 3 years old, right?
Well, I was a little older,
Okay.
but, as I said, I was born in Hollywood at the Hollywood Hospital, went to Hollywood High School. My father worked at the Bank of Hollywood on the corner of Hollywood and Vine, probably the most famous corner in the whole world. So, no, I'm definitely a Hollywood girl, and but I'm not looking forward to going to Hollywood. Was it Forever Hollywood too soon? That's a cemetery here named Forever Hollywood.
Well, we don't want you to go there. We don't want you to go there.
No, we don't want to go there.
No.
I used to live on Hollywood Boulevard when I was a child. It was quite not a hangout for character actors during the 30s. And my father used to take me to Hollywood Boulevard to see all the celebrities and the fun people like John Carradine reciting Shakespeare, all dressed up in beautiful white tie and tails. And there were just so many wonderful characters. There was a strange little man called Peter the Hermit who dressed in, literally a loincloth. And my father knew him, and as a matter of fact, I have his cane. I don't know why my father inherited his cane, but I had his cane. And, there was a very famous paper boy who discovered Jean Harlow. He always claimed that he discovered her, introduced her to a very famous producer who used to buy papers from him, introduced her when her name was, Arlene Carpenter. And she supported him, gave him money. And when Memphis died, he left my father 9,000 books. So we're just quite a Hollywood character on our own.
You went to school with Joan Leslie, whom we just lost.
Yes, I did. A grammar school, a little Catholic grammar school, St. Ambrose. I went to school with Joan Leslie, and then later on at Hollywood High School, I went to school with James Garner and Stuart Whitman. And, there was many people that graduated from Hollywood High, but those are the only two. And, the composer, the conductor, Andre Previn. Andre Previn went to also. I was very fortunate to see him at Hollywood High School, not knowing at all at the time how famous he was and how very, very important he was.
Wow. See, the kid that, and I can't think of his name right, was from Welcome Back, Carter, the Puerto Rican kid, Eric. He graduated from my high school. And Jack Walden, who played with I Want to Know What Love Is, with that band, he played the synthesizer. So I came from a very artsy school. I graduated with a lot of, very artsy people. And when we dropped in the middle of Metuchen, New Jersey, it was like culture shock for me. Coming from a very rural area and having a bit of an accent and all, it was it was hippie haven, and here I was not a hippie. I didn't know anything about that kind of lifestyle.
But you said a rural area. What area would that be that you came from?
Well, the family is from Roscommon and Tyrone in Ireland, and we ended up in Piscataway, New Jersey for a while, Elizabeth, New Jersey, but that was when I was real young.
I bet you had an accent, and a charming one, too. I'm sorry you lost it because, I love an Irish accent.
When I get mad, it comes out, and nobody knows it better than Teddy. But it was a different culture for me to drop in into that little town, and they were all, my first day in school, this show was about you, but my first day at that high school, because we moved a lot, and my senior year we moved, and nobody would talk to me, and finally this guy who looked like he had a 3-day growth beard on his face in the back of the class said, "They think you're a narc." And I had to ask him, "What is a narc?" And he says, "They think you're a cop." And I says, "Well, what are you? Are you a teacher?" And he says, "No, I'm a student." He looked like he was 43, but he was a student. And I laughed so hard. But as it turned out, one of the English teachers knew Booger All. And I finally walked up to him after class and says, "They all think I'm a narc, but you're the narc, aren't you?" He says, "Don't let anybody know."
It was Serpico?
Yeah, he was undercover and busted one of the English teachers for having parties in his house. It was a very interesting year in my life. It was like that one year where the world opened up for me, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be in that particular world, Kind of like landing in an episode of Seinfeld. Do you know what I mean?
But I think of how beautiful Ireland is, and you say just a rural area where I could just picture how gorgeous that is, and then you come over and see what you had to deal with in the United States. It was a culture shock for you.
Yeah, because it was a farm. Yeah, it was a farm, and the house is still there, and I'm grateful. One of my cousins owns it, and in the 70s, because thatch roofs over there are very expensive to replace, so they just took the old thatch roof off of it, and they put like this corrugated plastic stuff on it back somewhere in about 1970. And when they did that, yeah, they found a bunch of rifles from the Troubles, and then my other cousin from England, one of my uncles moved over there, and he bought the house from the family, and he was able to put a thatch roof back on it, and it looks beautiful. And it's just nice to know that the old man's house is still there,
That's so. How long has it been in the family?
I guess the farm. I know that my great-grandfather lived there. My grandfather was born there and all. So I'm going to say they came. What it was is we recycle the same names. Garrett, Joseph, you know what I mean? The same names. And I don't know why, but they never pick new names. But we can trace my great-great-grandfather back to Mayo, and then his son Garrett bought a farm in Roscommon, Castlerea, Roscommon, in Lisbon.
Oh, that's lovely. I was so fortunate that my father, my children have inherited my father and my grandfather's farm. We still have a family farm in Ohio, in a small town in Kenton, 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 Ohio. We still have a lovely 300, 400-acre farm back there that's a working farm. And it's so nice to know that one has kept up the tradition of having a farm in their family and not to let it go and sell it off for houses to be built on. But I haven't been back there for a while, but my children, we dearly love it and are very sentimental about having a farm in the family. So I understand your feeling completely. It's lovely.
Yeah, it's someplace that, so many people don't know where they came from. They came to America and, years and years ago, but we have the luxury of knowing where we came from and everything. So that's nice. Father came from Germany. They came from Germany and settled here in about 1750. So we go back ways. And no, it is charming to know. I haven't researched the entire family, but just my father's side on his mother's side of the family. But I would like to continue on with that. You want to do something, and something else sidetracks you, and you don't get around to it. But it is lovely to know where you came from. You were at the top of your game, and I mean, you were in the War of the Worlds with Gene Barry. I'm going to go back on this list, and we're re-talking about things because we had an audio problem early. You did a lot of uncredited stuff in 1950, and then Racket Squad, you got credit. You got credit for Racket Squad, and then you did City Beneath the Sea, which was pretty big. And
I don't recognize those titles at all.
Well, you were uncredited in a lot of different stuff. You did an Abbott and Costello movie where you were...
Yes, you're quite right about that. I beg your pardon. Yes, I was a Mirage.
Right.
In one of the Abbott and Costello movies. I've forgotten. I don't remember the name of it.
Morocco, I think.
Do you have it listed?
I think it's something in Morocco or something, or the Foreign Legion or something. It's one of those.
Yes, it is the Foreign Legion. It's Abbott and Costello and the Foreign Legion. I remember.
How was it to work with them?
Oh, well, I didn't. I didn't even get to meet them. No, I was just my scene. It was on like a carousel, or I'm out in the desert in a bathing suit sipping a soda, and I that's all I remembered. I think I saw it once. My children have seen it since then, and they laugh about it. There's Mother as a Mirage. And
right.
No, I did a lot of extra work at Universal. I was most fortunate. They were very kind to me. They helped me get started.
Yeah, you're the second actress who's told me that they've worked in so many big things, but never got to meet any of the main actors and actresses. You know, and that boggles my mind because we watch the movie and we automatically think, well, they must have met them. They were in their movie. But I guess the way movies are made with scenes and stuff, I guess you don't have to be there with the actors, right?
Well, if you're not in the scene, if you have no business with them, if you're not in the scene with them, unless they just happen to be hanging around the set, there'd be no reason for me to meet them.
Right.
They're busy doing something else, perhaps, or shooting elsewhere. While I'm doing a small, unimportant scene as that I was as a Mirage, there would be no reason for Abbott or Costello to be on the set. It'd be a completely separate shot.
Yeah, we were talking about Rawhide. Oh, yeah, Robert Hedges. That's the kid that was graduated a year before me in Metuchen High School. He played the Spanish kid in Welcome Back, Carter. Thank you, Terry Soto. And Terry Soto says hello.
Juan Epstein, yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Hello back.
Yeah, he says, we miss her. She needs to get out more, and talk to her fans. And I agree with you, Terry. Terry Soto is a good friend. He's done Comic-Cons and all kinds of things like that. And I wish he'd do another because I'm trying to go to one before I'm too...
Yes, I wish he would, too. Captain Celluloid. I mean, I was back there, I think, in 2008. I'm not quite sure. Is when he was kind enough to invite me to New York, and I had a wonderful time. He's a most gracious host. He's a lovely man. And his whole family, I met everyone. It was one of the nicest conventions I've ever been to. Celeste Holmes was there. Jimmy Hunt was there. That lovely woman, and Betsy Palmer. Oh, I got to meet Betsy Palmer. She perhaps was one of the nicest women I've ever spoken to, and so much fun. What a lively character, and just friendly and sweet to everyone.
Yeah.
We liked her very much. I'm so sorry that she's gone.
Yeah.
What's lovely about television is that I can look at all the old game shows now that she was on and see her again. And I see them on every night out here in California. There's I Got a Secret, I do believe, is on out here, and I get to see her. And
that's
her.
lovely. Yeah.
It is lovely.
Yeah, I miss and I'm going to get killed by this because but I miss a lot of the older actors and actresses because I think they were a lot more disciplined. I don't know. I talked about this with Julie Adams, who's going to be on next week. And,
is she? Oh,
yes.
Oh, we love her. And her son, Mitch. Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad they're going to be on next week. Give them my best.
Yes.
They're lovely, lovely. And her book, oh my goodness, she was so kind. She gave me a book, her book that she wrote. It is so interesting and so well written. I hope you have a chance to read it.
Yes, it was funny. I says, well, why write the book? You know, what was the best part of writing the book? She says, finishing it.
Imagine. Oh no, it's a long, interesting story. But I can imagine. Oh, and her pictures. My God, she's a gorgeous creature. Just a gorgeous young lady.
Well, you weren't the trash in the backyard either, lady. You were. Wow.
The other day, and I was talking to my son Estefan, and I said, "Good Lord, you know, I was a lot prettier than I thought I was." I said, I wasn't a bad-looking young lady at all, not bad-looking.
Oh,
and, no. The photographs that I see, the studios knew how to photograph women. They knew how to light them. They knew how to pose them. Just the way your makeup and your hair and your clothes were done. There's nothing like that today. Everyone, oh my God, they dress so pathetically. And in the 50s, women just were so lovely. And as I said, photographers, they just knew how to photograph us and make us look absolutely extra special.
Yeah, I mean, you were absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to play a clip from Rawhide. And this clip from Rawhide is you are the princess of an Aztec man comes to, he helps save one of the roadies from the cattle drive. And then he says he's looking for a princess, and he'll find her in a castle surrounded by gold. And he finds you, and you're a salty bit of a barmaid, right?
I am. I remember being in a costume in the bar. Yes, I was. I remember being hired for that. I was interviewed for an awfully long time with the lovely director-producer. And because I was married to Jaime Bravo, the matador in Mexico, I knew a lot of Spanish, and I knew a lot of Mexican customs, and I do believe that is why I was hired, even though I had very bright red hair. They darkened it temporarily with very black, hair dye that washed out, fortunately. But that is exactly why I was hired for that, because of my experience and living in Mexico with the Mexican bullfighter. So I was most fortunate just for that. And I had a lot of fun doing it. My father was, I could never remember his name. Quetzalcoatl, that's his name. It's hard enough to, no wonder I can't remember it. You can hardly pronounce it.
Yeah, I would never be able to pronounce it. Yeah, and I'm going to play a clip from it. It's 2 minutes and 41 seconds because I want them to hear. You think your character just thinks it's all hogwash and just ridiculous that you're doing this, that this guy thinks you're a princess and you're making fun of him. And at first, the actor is kind of the road hand. He's kind of smitten with you a little bit, but he realizes you're interested in another man who's maybe not so savory, but he backs right off. And then all of a sudden, this Aztec man comes in claiming that you're a princess and you're mocking him. So I want to play that. We're going to go to a side room, and I'm going to play it.
This sounds so interesting. I'd like to see it again myself.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube.
Well, I'll have my son bring that right up to me.
Okay. We're going to take a break, everybody. You're listening to Dreamstream Radio. I'm sorry for the little glitch we had before. I don't know why, but the station is a long way from me, and I'm not moving there. So that's just the way it is, guys. Yes, this is Ann Robinson in Rawhide, one of the most popular shows back in the 50s.
El collar.
No, amigo. No.
No puede ser.
No.
What's wrong?
He's excited. It's the first time he's seen a girl in this town wearing a gold necklace.
Girl.
By the cashier's cage.
Thinks that girl's a princess?
I better stop him before he gets into trouble.
Here, what are you doing, princesa?
What? No la molestes, Meidler. 1,000 pardons, señorita.
Matter with him?
He's confused. He doesn't understand.
Es la princesa Jesus.
No.
Mira el collar.
Charlie, get him out of here.
I'll take care of him, Major.
You know this man?
That's right. Es la verdadera princesa, amigo. No, Maitla. You've made a mistake. Está equivocado. Jesus?
He hasn't made a mistake, Senor Fever.
Look, it's been a long, hard day.
Do you remember where he said we'd find her? In a palace, surrounded by gold. And wearing a necklace made of the feather of an eagle, the skin of the serpent, the
spine of a cactus. The only trouble is that's made of gold.
gold coins. Mexican coins. Each one stamped with the symbol of Mexico. The eagle perched on a cactus with a snake in its claw.
Look, Jesus, you're reaching even to make a coincidence. Come on.
Senorita, who was your mother? Was she from Mexico? Was she Aztec?
Don't know. She died when I was born. I don't know where she was from.
This man, Senorita. This man thinks you're descended from the Aztec kings. That you're a princess with holy powers. Daughter of the god Quetzalcoatl.
The who? Well, if I'm the daughter of a god, I must be rich.
No, your mother was terribly poor. And so will you be all your life. But you have the power to help your people. They need you.
Oh. Well, what are you standing there grinning like that for, Charlie? Throw this idiot out.
Princessa.
Alone.
Salam, oh princess.
Oh. Who's she supposed to be, the Duchess of Mexico City?
Princessa, Maitla has walked 1,500 miles to see you.
Well, I guess you must be the King of Texas.
That's enough. Come on. Come on.
Sorry.
I'll come by for you after a while, Princess.
Oh. All right. Oh, hey! Listen to this, everybody. I'm a princessa.
And that was a fabulous actress, Ann Robinson, who is our guest tonight, and she was on Rawhide, and she was kind of mocking. So you have a wide range for an actress.
Well, that's very nice to hear. I was sort of surprised when I looked back on some of my career how different each part was. I was most fortunate. I guess it was just I was just lucky. I grew up listening to the radio, and the radio gave you when you were a young child a great imagination because you're listening and you're making up your own movie in your head. And so, really, that's all I ever thought acting was just make-believe. And each character was a different character, and that's all you were doing, is listening to the radio in your own head, and it was all make-believe.
Oh, yeah. I love old-time radio because, and this is funny because you were in War of the Worlds. Well, my husband, Teddy, is 84, and he was 6 years old when Orson Welles did War of the Worlds. On the radio. And
yes.
They lived in Orange, New Jersey. Okay,
dear.
They've been here a long time. And people always scoff and say, no, that never happened. There wasn't a panic. The night Orson Welles panicked America, that didn't happen.
Oh, that's not true at all. There was an enormous
Yes, there was. There was a huge panic because his mother did not hear the beginning. She was doing the dishes and cleaning up from dinner. And she came out and she sat down, and by this time, neighbors were already knocking on the old man's door saying, we got a problem, what do we do? And some of them were actually talking about killing their children. And
really?
my
Yes.
father-in-law said, leave him with me, I've got a gun, and worst come to worst, I'll know what to do. And meanwhile, these people are packing up. You're talking 30 minutes. People are trying to shove stuff in cars. They're trying to figure out if they should kill their children. What should they do? And he remembers his mother was hysterical. And she, the old man's yelling at her, Ida, shut up, you're scaring the kids.
My daughter-in-law, Barbara Colgrove Bravo, her Aunt Betty was going to Princeton at the time, studying to be a nurse. And she wrote a letter to me and explained exactly what happened to her, how they were evacuated. They all had to pack up and go into a safe room or the basement just to wait and see with the Martians what they were going to do.
Yes.
So no, they really thought something was happening. And years later, I was fortunate enough. My daughter-in-law Barbara drove me down to Grover's Mill to see where it all began, where Orson Welles. And there's a big, large monument in the park dedicated to Orson Welles and to that program. And what is so amusing, there's an enormous water tower behind a beautiful home that Grover Cleveland, the president, stayed in. That's why it's called Grover's Mill.
Grover's Mills,
because
right.
He used to fish down there in this large lake they have. But there's this huge water tower, very strange looking, and stands on a tripod. So as they're describing these awful monsters that are walking around on a tripod, even though these people knew it was the water tower, when I went down to Grover's Mill, it is filled with bullet holes. They just sat and shot this, thinking it was a Martian, knowing full well that it's the water tower.
Yeah, because it was dark and they couldn't see that well. You didn't have the kind of lighting you have today. People today think that's silly because they did not live in that world back then. And,
no, not at all. But
we didn't have the terrible light filtering and that we have now.
No, it's the imagination. We're lacking. People nowadays are lacking imagination. They have a computer to do it for them. They have television to do it for them. They walk around like, I call them telephone zombies. They'll walk into. I'm just waiting for someone to walk into a manhole, and they bump into into telephone poles or step off the curb without even looking to see if a car is coming. No, people do not have. They're not developing mentally like perhaps we did. Having a radio and books to read. And someone to read a book for us or to us, where we could imagine what was going on. No, but just having someone in the family that actually experienced that night of Orson Welles. It was in 1938. I could have heard it, but my mother. I guess I was just too young to stay up that late, and my mother and father didn't hear it. And unfortunately, I was too young to listen to Mercury Theater.
Yeah, it was a wicked night.
Listening to Charlie McCarthy instead.
Yeah.
I don't think they were interested in the Martians landing.
Right.
Not in California, anyway. They were too far away to bother them.
I just want to comment on one more thing about the War of the Worlds. You're talking about a time in American history, world history, that a lot of people had never heard of H.G. Wells or read War of the Worlds. The average American farmer out in the Midwest and stuff, they're buying or reading books on farming and stuff like that. There's no time for fiction, and that kind of thing. So a lot of people, this caught them by surprise because they had never heard of H.G. Wells or the War of the Worlds. A lot of people didn't go to college. Back then, a lot of people didn't even graduate high school. Maybe they went to 7th grade, and then they went out and got a job. It was a different world back then. I never thought
about that.
Yeah, it was a different world.
Actually, I hadn't read the book myself. I didn't think about it until I was at Paramount and got the part, and then I tried to read the book. It was a very difficult read. And then years later, when Steven Spielberg was kind enough to give me a cameo in his version of War of the Worlds, is when I got the book and read it, and it's a very difficult read. I can understand why people wouldn't be interested in it. It's very dark, and it's unpleasant. It has no future. The book, this poor man is just trudging along. He has absolutely no future, and England is now going to be completely annihilated. It's not a happy read. It's a difficult read. So I can imagine why people were not interested in that particular literature that H.G. Wells wrote. Perhaps The Time Machine was a far more interesting book to have read. Today is a very popular movie and a very popular story.
How did you get the part for War of the Worlds?
Well, I was under contract to Paramount Studio. I was a member of the Golden Circle, which were considered the stars of tomorrow. Actually, the Golden Circle had begun at Paramount Studio in 1922. I was just fortunate enough that one of the girls, who read for the part, and they weren't. George Powell wasn't particularly interested in me. I was all right, but I was far too glamorous looking. I was too sophisticated looking. And Charlotte Clary...
You were very, very pretty. You didn't look like the girl next door in that picture.
Not at all. Not at all. My hair was very, very short, very sophisticated, bright red, and poodle cut. And Charlotte Clary was the drama coach, and we had done something on record where I played two parts simultaneously. A very young girl, very innocent young girl, and it was a radio show called Alter Ego, where she had this voice within her telling her to do evil. And so here I was. It was a breath exercise where I had to be able to change voices immediately without taking a breath, is what it was. So Charlotte and I had recorded this with Vince Edwards. He was an actor at the time. He played my sweetheart, who I ended up killing with a pair of scissors, on tape, of course. And we recorded this, and when George Pell listened to it, Gene Barry said, "Oh, no, this must be a trick. She probably recorded it separately, and they edited it together." And Charlotte Clary said, "Absolutely not. She did it all by herself, all at once." So I went into the fishbowl, the very famous fishbowl, but everybody had their interviews in, a very cold, scary room with plate glass window where the executive would sit on one side in the dark and look at you, and if you were trying to get reading for a screen test. So I went in there and did it for them live, and George Pell was very, very impressed the fact that I could do this, speaking in a very innocent voice and then a very cruel voice simultaneously, and it had a couple of good screams in it. So so he said, you don't look the part, so let's give you a screen test and let's make you look the part. So after the screen test was over with, and his wife looked at it, and actually I did get the part because of George Pell's dear wife approved of me, and that's how I got the part. And I was
Gene Barry
very lucky. It's the luckiest thing that ever happened to me, to be in a movie that is never going to lose its interest.
No.
I mean, there are another two generations I have met of children that have grown up, and now their children are watching this and enjoying it and finding, even though it's not made with computers, it's all made by genius and by people who knew what they were doing. They didn't need to push a button and have something appear. They're all made by hand. They enjoy watching it. They enjoy watching it very much, and it's as long as there is an electric plug or a battery left in this world, War of the Worlds is going to be seen for generations, I'm sure.
I mean, what Gene Barry was, from what I understand, a little bit shortish. Was he taller than you or shorter?
Oh, he was much taller than I.
Okay.
Oh, he was at least 6'1".
Oh, really?
Oh, he was a tall man.
I read that
Absolutely.
he was kind of shortish, and in something he did,
no, not at
he
all.
was a little nervous.
He was over 6 feet tall.
Oh, okay.
I'm 5'6" and a quarter, and he was over 6 feet.
He was a good-looking guy. How was he to work with?
He was a charmer. He was a lovely, lovely gentleman. He came from New York. He was a song and dance man from Broadway. He came out from New York. He sold everything, got into a car. He and his wife came out to Hollywood to make his career. And I said, "Why did you pick, of all the studios that you went to, why did you pick Paramount Studio?" He said, "Because they paid me the most."
Right.
He got, all the other studios offered $500 a week. He was getting $750 a week. I was getting $125 a week as a contract player.
Wow. It was a hard way to make a living, but I want to play the trailer for the War of the Worlds, and then I'm going to play the battle scene where you scream bloody blue murder, because your uncle in the film, you see, everybody updates it and changes it. Even Steven Spielberg changed it. He switched it around, because you do the cameo. You and Gene Barry are in the new one, too, with Tom Cruise.
At the very end. We were the surprise finish. We weren't allowed to tell anybody that we were in it.
Wow. And you're the parents, right, in that?
The grandparents. I'm Dakota Fanning's grandmother.
Right. The ex-wife for the whatever. Her parents.
Miranda. I've forgotten her last name. Otto. Miranda Otto. She was in Lord of the Rings, And,
Right.
and I had no idea that she was really pregnant at the time. But
Right.
a charming, lovely, lovely girl. Lovely woman.
I'm going to play the trailer, and like I told you, you won't be able to hear it, but hopefully our listeners will. And then part of the battle scene, and they're going to get to hear that lovely scream of yours. Okay?
I don't know how lovely it is, but it's quite loud.
Yes, that's the plan. Okay, listeners, you're listening to Dreamstream Radio and our very special guest, Ann Robinson, who has an incredible film history, and she's been at everything. And we also have Dragnet. We're going to do a little bit of Dragnet. And we have a couple of surprises for you. So everybody sit back, get your Coke, your popcorn. And this is the actress that I think this movie is going to be history forever, because Orson Welles turned it into one of the biggest Halloween scares of all time. Martians attacking the Earth. So everybody relax and enjoy the clips.
This could be the beginning of the end for the human race. For what men first thought were meteors or the often ridiculed flying saucers are in reality a flaming vanguard of the invasion from Mars.
Looks like they're going to come out of that gully pretty soon. We'll have to rush our defenses to be ready when they do.
Doug, need plenty of reinforcements.
We'll get them. Lieutenant! Look!
Slashed across country like scythes, wiping out everything that's trying to get away from them.
That explains why communication is cut the moment their machines begin moving.
Montreal's blacked out. Nothing more's come through.
Same thing that happened on the Pacific coast. Anything from them yet?
No, Mr. Secretary, we've had nothing from San Francisco for over 5 hours.
The nations of the world mobilize their armed might, rushing to defend the Earth against the unknown weapons of the super race from the Red Planet. Is there nothing that can stop the Martian death machines?
Guns, tanks, bombs. They're like toys against them. We know now that we can't beat their machine. We've got to beat them.
All over the world, human beings cower before the onslaught of these unearthly enemies, whom no one has ever seen. Panic that sweeps around the globe as the great masses of mankind flee blindly in a headlong stampede of hysteria.
Too far away.
And that was Ann Robinson screaming in the War of the Worlds. That kind of turned everything around for you, right?
Oh, very much so. I mean, I had never been featured in a movie. I'd had a smaller part in the Joan Crawford movie, Goodbye My Fancy, where I had a very nice bit part, a very nice part in a movie. But this one, to be chosen to be in such such an expensive movie and such a pivotal movie for George Pell. Cecil B. DeMille owned that movie, and so he had a great deal to do with the making of it. He and George Pell. That's why it has such a significant look about it. There's nothing amateurish about this movie whatsoever. It's so well made. And one interesting thing about our director, Byron Haskin, he was a World War II cameraman. He shot a lot of footage in World War II, so that is why the battle scenes in War of the Worlds are so perfectly shot and organized, because of his experience in World War II as a cameraman.
I was just going to say that. We must be on the same wavelength. The wreckage, the carnage, is indicative of World War I and World War II in Europe. You can see it's almost as if they've recreated the French cities and all the cities over in Europe that were completely obliterated by war. And in that movie, that comes very clearly home to you, because this was in the 1950s, and it was after World War II. So a lot of men had been over to Europe and had seen World War II and what was done to all those incredible, know? Yeah.
Oh, yes. No, we were most fortunate. I had no idea that he was such I didn't know that at the time, that he was an experienced cameraman in World War II. I didn't learn about that till way, way later. And no wonder the movie holds up so beautifully, and the war is so interesting. It's so interestingly shot and so authentically shot that it's not just an ordinary bunch of noise. It's very well done and holds your interest.
Yeah. Dragnet. That's an interesting... Jack Webb, I've always loved Jack Webb. I've heard he was a hard taskmaster on the set, but he was a good guy. That movie, you played Officer Grace Downey. But they had already cast somebody for that, right?
Yes, that's true. How did you know that?
I do a lot of homework. I do a lot of homework.
I didn't know that you... Well, Randy Brooks, yes. I had gone on the interview, and Jack Webb apologized that he had already hired somebody else, but he said, you've gone to the trouble to come here. I would like to have you read for me for anything in the future that I might, that might be aware of, that he could use me. So I thought, well, to myself, I have absolutely nothing to lose. So I'm reading the script. All I did was imitate him. Every word was just exactly the way he would have said it. And so when I was finished, he asked me to be excused for a moment. And then he came back into the room and he said, well, we already hired someone else, but if you don't mind, we prefer you. And if you don't mind, we'd like you to be our leading lady. And I said, well, quite frankly, I don't mind at all.
Right.
And so he, I guess, paid her and her agent. And I remember running into the agent later. It was a woman who wore outrageous hats, and I can't remember her name now, but she wasn't too happy with the fact that I got the part. But I never ran into Randy Brooks after that. But she ended up having a wonderful part in All About Eve, where she is Eve's friend when she's on the telephone. There's a scene where she's calling Hugh Marlowe on the scene and saying, "Oh, Eve is so ill. Could you?" And we don't know what to do. She needs you desperately. And so Hugh Marlowe gets up out of bed, and Celeste Holmes watches him leave to go take care of Eve. And so when she hangs up the phone, they both give the okay signal to one another. And so that's Randy Brooks. And that was an excellent scene. She was very lucky to have had that moment. But I was very, very fortunate. Jack Webb was a delight to me, and I always laugh. I said I had the biggest crush on him, but he never gave me a tumble. He had a girlfriend. He was just getting over one divorce and had a new girlfriend, so I guess he was a little bit too busy to give me a second look, but he was charming to me. Very, very charming. And
he seemed like that.
I liked the man very much, and I was devastated to hear that he died. Just devastated. He died entirely too young.
Yeah.
Entirely too young. I ran into Kent McCord about a year or two ago. They had done Adam 12, he and Marty Milner. And I just found out recently, and I didn't know that Marty Milner had passed away.
Yeah.
When I was in a play called Wind Without Rain, that's how I got my contract at Paramount. I was in the Circle Theater right around the corner by a play by Ivan Tors called Wind Without Rain. And Marty Milner played my younger brother. So, I mean, I'm just sort of babbling on about these people's names as they come into my head. And Kent McCord, he explained to me how he was kept very good friendship with them, with Jack Webb, and explained to me, how his passing. He just smoked too much. He just did not take care of himself, and his passing was a big surprise to everyone.
He's a workaholic.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. He worked very, very hard and smoked entirely too much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think he was a drinker. I don't know, but I don't think that had anything to do with it. But
he was a chain smoker, and he just never stopped. He was always working on the next project.
Yes, he was. Oh no, he was an awfully nice man. I'm very fortunate to have worked with him and to have met him. It helped me a great deal.
I have a little trailer for Dragnet with Richard Boone. I happen to be a huge Richard Boone fan too. How was he working?
With Paladin, was the name of the? Was that the name of
Have Gun Will Travel.
Have Gun Will Travel. That's right. Oh no, he was. He was just everybody was just charming. They're nice people. We didn't much hang out together. I was just sort of the only girl on the set. It's so funny to be a policewoman because when I was a little kid, I always wanted to be a policewoman when I grew up, and I got to be one. Mm-hmm. I got to be one. I went to the academy. I don't live here in Legion Park where I live now. I'm just a stone's throw from the academy, and I can hear them at the rifle practice at the rifle range. And my children all grew up. They said it sounded like the Civil War was just on yonder hill. And that what it must have been like for Abraham Lincoln going to church on Sunday and hearing the shooting, the rifles and the cannons going off, because that's what I hear. But I had to go through the entire program. That's how thorough he was about being a policewoman. I went to the police academy and I went through the entire program. At the shooting range, everything. The gymnasium, everything that the policewoman had to go through, I had to go through. Combat, everything, jiu-jitsu, whatever they...
And that was because he was a perfectionist.
Absolutely. Absolutely. He's a perfectionist, and then he wasn't just going to hire you. He wanted you to absolutely think that you were a real policewoman.
Yeah, I'm going to try to play this trailer. It's Jack Webb with Richard Boone, and unfortunately you're not in it, but I want people to know all the work you've done, which is incredible. Your legacy is just incredible, and I hope you're not done yet. So let's... I
go to a lot of conventions, so I'm not done yet.
Yeah, I was going to ask you, you go to conventions, right?
Yes, I do, and I love them, and I'm going to one... again here on Halloween, the day before, the day of, and the day after over here at the Westin Hotel, close to the beach, close to the airport in LAX. I'll be there for 3-day weekend. I'm looking forward to it. I don't know who else is going to be there. I'll have to look it up on the internet, but I'm fortunate enough to be invited. I just came back from another lovely convention up in Moraga. It's just above Sacramento. It's just above Oakland. I was at a theater up there for the weekend and had a lovely time meeting lovely, lovely people. They come out and greet me, and they're so kind to me, and I'm very appreciative. So you're going to play something now, and so I'll stop talking for a minute so you can get on with your business.
Okay. This is a Dragnet, the official trailer for the first movie. So I hope everybody enjoys.
intelligence. You keep tabs on these boys?
Yeah.
What about the victim? You think Starkey was in trouble?
He was at 4 o'clock this afternoon.
This gonna take long.
You got the time?
Mine's worth money, yours isn't.
Send in a bill.
I asked you a question.
You're here to answer him, not ask him.
Now, you listen to me, cop. I pay your salary.
All right, sit down. I'm gonna earn it.
You already have the kind of money you make. What do they pay you to carry that badge around? 40 cents an hour?
You sit down. That badge pays $464 a month. That's what the job's worth. I knew that when I hired on. $67.40 comes out for withholding. I give $27.84 for pension and $12 for widows and orphans. That leaves me $356.76. That badge is worth $1.82 an hour. So, mister, you just settle back in that chair because I'm going to blow about $20 of it right now.
You and that toad get out of here.
We got no beef with you.
Come on, I'll help you out.
Now, in case anybody thinks, well, that's not a big deal, Dragnet, it made a movie. Then there was a series that was on for years. It retired and came out of retirement and ran another few years as a new series with Jack Webb in it. That's how popular Dragnet was. And it all came from this movie that Ann Robinson was in as a policewoman in it. And we were just talking about Jack Webb's voice. It was very monotone. And even when he was ticked off, it changed a little bit, but not much. He had an odd delivery.
Actually, the television series was so popular, that's why they made the movie. The television series came first, then the movie. That's why we were fortunate enough to have that. But Jack Webb, interestingly enough, he's the one who sort of started the use of a teleprompter, where he did not like you to memorize your lines. He wanted you to read them, and you were looking into the teleprompter. He wanted it absolutely impromptu, as if it were the first time you'd said anything. He didn't want you to memorize anything. So, except for the long shots, where everybody's in the scene together, you had to know what you were saying. But for your close-up, you used a teleprompter and you read. You did not, nothing was memorized. He wanted it to be as natural as possible.
Wow, because I'd be in trouble because I'd be mispronouncing. What is that word? What is that? How do you pronounce that word?
I often wonder that at the Academy Awards when the people have to read the teleprompter. And I said, it's a shame you didn't go to rehearsal the day before because they can't read what's coming up. I don't know how I could do that today. I'm
telling you. I'm
terrified. I don't know. I don't know how far away it is, and I don't know how large the letters are. If you can even see it well enough to be able to read it. And you're right. What is that big word? I don't know what that big word is. I never saw that word spelled.
Yeah, Liam Neeson gets up there, and he's talking and he's talking about Maureen O'Hara. He's talking, and I'm thinking any minute out of his mouth is going to be, what the fuck is that word? Really? Because, he's from Ireland, my kids always
do some fast bleeping.
Yeah, my kids always laugh because I tend to say, go ask your father like AXE, not go ask, It's X, A-X-E, yeah. Go ask your father. And they sit there and they start giggling. Yeah, go ask my father. I got no problem with that. Yeah, go ask him. You want me to ask him? I'll ask him, Mom. Yeah. If I could first. Yeah.
You gotta hone up that axe.
So that was always the big joke in this house. Hey, I'm going to go ask Dad. I'm going to go get him. Yeah, it was a great series, and you were lucky enough to bounce out of that. You were at the top of your game, and then you run away and you marry a matador.
That's right.
What were you thinking?
To Mexico. It sounded like the good thing, the right thing to do at the time. No, I had a wonderful marriage with Jaime Bravo. He was quite something. And I have two wonderful, wonderful sons, Jaime Anastasio Bravo and Stefan Adrian Bravo. Jaime, the eldest, he's as I've said before, he lives in Hoboken, New Jersey. He's a director for ABC Sports, and he was born in Mexico. And Stefan was born here in California. He used to tell everybody he was born in Portugal, but I guess we can't fake that any longer. He said his brother was born in Mexico. It sounded so romantic. He thought Glendale was a little unattractive over at the Glendale Memorial Hospital. He wanted to be born in Portugal, someplace very, very romantic. And while we were down there, yes, that Lana Turner movie called Love Has Many Faces, their father is featured in that of course, as a bullfighter.
Right.
And that's an awfully interesting, it's a fun movie. We had a very good time. It was shot in Acapulco and at a bull ranch. And so Hugh O'Brien was in it, Lana Turner, Stephanie Powers, Ruth Roman, yes, and Cliff Robertson. It was an all-star cast. And I have a lobby card from it, which I'm very happy to have for the children with their father featured in it. But he was quite a romantic fellow, and Lana Turner seemed to have she sort of after him now and then. I have a feeling that he might have not resisted her. I don't think he had much resistance for her, quite frankly.
Your son Esteban played the Axl Rose character in White Trash Wins Lotto. So he's got some acting ability too, right?
Exactly. Oh no. He as a young boy, at 12 years old, he was with American Ballet Theater. He traveled with them. He did Baiser de la Fée and Petrushka. He was he was most fortunate, and he was an excellent dancer at that age. And unfortunately, he had an accident on a horse and broke his leg, and that just ended his ballet career. And American Ballet Theater was most disappointed because they were grooming him. And it's a shame. But then he went on to do other things. He went into music and was quite successful and is enjoying music very much.
That's cool. You and the Matador ended up being divorced in 1967.
That's correct.
Yeah, and he passed away in an automobile on his way to a bullfight. He had an accident. And then you remarried. But as far as your boys go, in the Irish, we'd say you done good. You done good.
Yeah, that's true. Oh, no. Yes, he was on his way to a bull ranch and was killed in an automobile accident on the road to Zacatecas in Mexico. Mm-hmm. And it was it's so funny, though. He told me that he would never live past 40 and that he would probably die in an airplane accident or an automobile accident, but he would never die in the bull ring. And oddly enough, he sort of followed Carlos Arusa, who also died in an automobile accident. And we don't know what happened. I guess, I don't know if the driver lost control. He lost control somehow, either fell asleep or hit a ditch or an animal. There's a lot of animals sleep on the roads at night. Right. We don't know what caused the accident. And the young man who did survive, who was in the back seat, has I don't think he remembered. He was asleep and does not know what caused the accident. Mm-hmm. But it's a shame because he was a lot of fun even after the divorce. Right. And I adored his other wife, Monica Lynn. She was a beautiful girl from Las Vegas, and I just adored that woman. No one could understand why an ex-wife and a wife got along so well together. But I told her I knew exactly what she was in for. So I was going to be her best friend in case she needed me. And she has a lovely son, Aleko Bravo. So the two boys have a half-brother. So there's nice. 3 Bravo boys.
Oh, that's nice.
Yes, it is. Very nice.
You did a lot of shows, and I'm just going to run through them. Adam 12, Alfred Hitchcock Presents, Bachelor Father, Ben Casey. That was, what's his name? You worked with him before. Biff Baker, USA, The Bob Cummings Show, Grace and
George. You would mention Biff Baker. A lot of people don't even remember that or know that. That was Alan Hale Jr. and with Randy Brooks. That's when I met that woman, that sweet Randy Brooks that had gotten the part of Dragnet before I.
Right.
I'm so surprised you brought that up. I'm so glad you did.
George Burns and Gracie Allen show. Burns and Allen. I mean, They are, the epitome of greatness, Days of Our Lives. You worked that. Was that like a one-time shot, or were you a recurring actor?
Just momentarily, I was a reoccurring character for about 3 or 4 shows.
Right.
I was Bobby Janine Anderman. I was the mother of Margot's mother, who was married to one of the main characters on the show. So Leslie Urey was the young man, was the actor. I had a reoccurring part, and it's the first time I had avoided all my life. I avoided doing soap operas because I was terrified of what I considered live television.
Right.
I had done a commercial for Lux Video Theater when War of the Worlds was being presented. I did a commercial live to New York, and when it was kinescoped, here in Los Angeles. And I stood over there at CBS in a huge soundstage, terrified, because now they point to you, you're on live to New York.
Right.
And they had a great big, we referred to as idiot cards, to read, but I knew if I'd looked over and read them, I would have forgotten everything I had to say. It frightened me so much that I would, and I didn't make a mistake, fortunately. I did very well. I don't know how I managed to get through it, but I did. But that frightened me so much that I stayed away from any live television after that, which was very foolish of me. Because once I did Days of Our Lives, I found out that it was quite enjoyable and not as difficult as I thought it was. And then I went on and had a very short reoccurring part in General Hospital.
Right.
So it wasn't as bad as I thought. But no, you've named off quite a few things. I'm looking here at my credits from a book by Tom Weaver when I was credited as Anne Robin before they gave me back my real name, where I was in things like Peggy and Frenchie. I'm trying to think of her name. No, I'm trying to think of the stunt girl. I was her stunt woman in the
Shelley Winters. Shelley Winters.
I was Shelley Winters' stunt double in Frenchie when she had to turn over in a stagecoach. I was her double. I did a lot of uncredited things.
Yeah.
It's so strange that you have a better memory and list of things that I did than I have.
I've been researching you solidly for like 2 weeks, 3
Aren't
weeks.
You?
I mean, because I want people to understand you've been working since 1950. I mean, and you're still working. You just did the Tom Cruise War of the Worlds, the cameo in that.
The first show I ever did, the first movie I ever did, it was called Black Midnight with Roddy McDowell. That was in 1949. I had just gotten my card, and I was a stunt girl on horseback for the young lady who was the leading lady, Roddy McDowell, in Bud Bediker's movie Black Midnight. And I've only seen it once, and I'm still trying to find that movie. I'd love to see it again because I had a little bit part in it. They said all this time they were hiding me. I was supposed to look like somebody else, and they said let's give her a little bit part so she could be on film. And I've never seen it. I've been looking for it all these years since 1949. But that was my very first time on film.
How old was Roddy McDowell when you made this movie with him?
He was the most adorable man you'd ever want to meet.
That's what everybody says.
Oh, it's so sweet. I know he's British, and I know you're Irish.
That's
he was
okay.
Absolutely the most charming young man you'd ever want to know.
Some of the best people I know come from England, and some of the worst people I know come from Ireland. So
that's impossible.
It works. Everybody's got good and bad, and I accept people as they are, and as long as they treat me with respect, and you can have opposing opinions. It's important that people have opposing opinions because otherwise nobody talks about anything. And I'm willing to listen to it, but then please listen to my opinion as well, And as long as we understand that, I'm all good with it. I'm good. Everybody says he was a wonderful young man to work with. And even when he was older, he was a great photographer. He took photos of
right. I'd forgotten about that. You're absolutely right. I'd forgotten all about that.
Yeah.
That was a wonderful hobby of his. He was an excellent photographer.
Yeah.
I wish they put on exhibition, but I don't know why they haven't.
You ended up in the 80s, late 80s, almost 1990, doing the TV series War of the Worlds. See, you kind of got pulled back into it.
Well, I heard that they were doing that, and so I found somebody who knew somebody at Paramount, and I went over here in the park, and I had some pictures taken and had them developed overnight and sent to Paramount, and they said, well, let's do lunch. And they said they had no idea that, I hadn't grown, too unattractive and old and crippled. And so
I've seen pictures of you recent. You're still beautiful.
And I was fortunate enough. I had a very good time doing that series. They took me to Toronto, Canada, which is a lovely, lovely city. Just beautiful up there. I had the time of my life. With Sam Stranges and his son were kind enough to hire me, and they were charming people, and I really enjoyed myself doing that series. It was a little strange, a little odd. They had a little different take on War of the Worlds, what happened 40 years after we survived, but it was a lot of fun. It was charming.
Yeah, I want to play a clip. And it's the Cesar Romero passport.
Passport to Danger?
To Danger,
that's my son's favorite because I have a funny French accent.
Yes, I'm going to play it. So this is Cesar Romero. He works for the government, but he's very low keyed and he's kind of like a little bit like. No, I'm not like that. I keep telling you I'm not a secret agent. I'm not this, I'm not that. But he's always getting embroiled in something in this series. And he doesn't have the thick Spanish accent either in this because he's supposed to be like a American, kind of like a James Bond undercover. And this is a part where Anne Robinson is a girl who is part of a entourage of a rich man that's being investigated or something. And I wanted you to hear her accent because it's pretty good. And I enjoyed watching the whole thing a couple of days ago. So enjoy this. It was Destination Passport was the name of it?
Passport to Danger.
Okay, sorry. And we're going to play it. So enjoy, everybody.
Thanks, awfully.
Enjoy your visit, Monsieur McQueen?
You're some bodyguard, you are. Instead of following me, why didn't you call the police?
Why?
Because you could see I was in trouble, that's why.
But I'm not a spy like you, monsieur.
Look, get this through your royal skull. I am not a spy.
But of course, monsieur. Routine job, I understand. I am discreet, monsieur. The soul of diplomacy.
Yeah, well, look, Rasputin, do you think you can manage to get me back to my hotel without losing your royal way?
Of course, monsieur.
Monsieur. One moment, if you please.
Well, Miss Vinay, I believe.
I should like to have my $2,000 now.
You made your deal with Garside. He's the one who'll have to pay you.
You are the one who has the camera.
I'm afraid I don't know what you're talking about.
I will not be cheated, monsieur. The camera vanished from my father's villa after you were there. The pictures were in it.
You mean you got a picture of Regis without emissary?
Of course, aboard the Semiris. There were at least 4 exposures in the camera. Now it is gone.
Look, I never even saw the camera.
My father saw it right there while you were here. Then it was gone. You must have taken it.
You know it's not true. If I had, they'd have found it.
Of course, it is a mystery, monsieur. And the calamity for us all, yes?
Yeah. You're out $2,000 and your romance is shot.
It is not a romance. No, monsieur. Mr. Rodriguez is a royal cochon. He surrounds himself with beautiful women for window dressing.
You certainly qualify there.
Beauty, monsieur, is a commodity. It is not of much value in a shop or an office. All that I have, so...
You mean Regis pays you merely for your company?
He likes his women to gamble and he buys chips for them. And if one is very careful, I am not proud of it.
Why do it then?
My father? Oh, yes, of course. You talked to my father. No doubt you heard how the factories were destroyed in the war and the family fortune swept away. No doubt he told you how he plays roulette in order to save poor Jory from her fate. Only, of course, he never wins.
System doesn't work, huh?
Don't speak to me of systems. I have had enough to last a lifetime. He works out these little figures on this until it can never fail. And every morning he goes to the casino. And every afternoon he comes back to sell another chair or another table. Did you really think the furniture was out being cleaned?
You mean this is all that's left?
Oh, there's my bed, of course. And my clothes. But those I keep locked up where they would sell those too. I tell you, monsieur, this is a disease. Oh, you understand, monsieur? If I had gotten my $2,000, I could have taken my father back to...
What time does the casino open?
5 minutes to 10. That is when the citoyens play. Some last a few hours, some are finished in the first 5 minutes.
I've just had a thought. You get some sleep. If I'm right, you'll get to Paris yet.
But, monsieur...
And that was Anne Robinson. Wait a minute. Anne Robinson, she's with Cesar Romero, and she's doing a French accent, and she's a girl who a rich man likes to have hanging around, but she's not, doing anything she shouldn't be, because back then, it wasn't like now, everybody liked their girls to be nice, clean girls, even the girls who had it rough. How was it to work with him, Cesar Romero?
He was, well, I had known him personally, which was most fortunate, because he stayed on, when he and Tyrone Power flew around the world, they stayed on a ranch in Ascension in Uruguay, a ranch that my cousins were managing, 1.5 million acres. And
wow.
They stayed there on the ranch, and so we had something in common to talk about, so it was quite easy. It was very easy to work with him. He was a charming man, and just had a lot in common to talk about because he knew my relatives.
Right. Yeah. Everybody says that he was very charming. I got to tell you, they were two of the hottest looking guys in Hollywood. Tyrone Power and Cesar Romero. They were beautiful when they were young. And Cesar Romero was a bit of a song and dance man and a jokester when he first started doing comedies and stuff like that, and being kind of like the laughing boy, the one that everybody laughed at. And then he became a really...
I didn't know that. You really do your homework. I had no idea.
Yeah, in a lot of his... Yeah, in his early years, Cesar Romero did a lot of comedic parts, and that kind of thing. And then he evolved into this very serious actor who was incredible. And it broke his heart when Tyrone Power died. I think that broke everybody's heart because he was very young also. But again, workaholic, constantly pushing. Wonderful actors. You wanted to talk about Imitation of Life and something else.
Oh, thank you. That's one of my favorites. That movie sort of amazes me because it has quite a cult following. It's very interesting how that movie seems to affect so many people. I was most fortunate to be sought after, or sought out, rather. That's not sought after. That's a little pretentious. By Ross Hunter, because my hair was so red. I was very thin and extremely pale, very white girl, and the whole movie was a subject of color with Juanita Moore and Susan Kohner, who was they were black, and Lana Turner and Sandra Dee were very white, and they worked for Lana Turner, and Susan Kohner was trying to pass for white because she was a very pale black girl, and that was the whole premise of the entire story, was the struggle between Juanita Moore and her daughter, and her daughter had run away and worked at Earl Carroll's, which was a huge, important nightclub here in Los Angeles, a very important nightclub. And her mother caught up with her and found out where she was working and posing as a white girl. And she came, they had quite a lovely scene in a hotel room, and she begged her mother, please let me alone, let me live my life the way I want to live, and if you see me on the street, please don't say hello to me, don't speak to me. And, of course, it broke Juanita Moore's heart that her daughter would do that, but she understood her feelings. And so she said that they were going to hug each other and kiss goodbye, and suddenly I burst into the room, and I see Juanita Moore, and I say, well, if you're the new maid, I'd like to report that I have ants in my shower. And, of course, I'm very blunt with her. And Juanita Moore, she said, that must be very uncomfortable for you. And I walk away, and so the two of them, Juanita and Susan, they just sort of mouth their lines to one another about how much they love each other, and they say goodbye. And then when Juanita leaves and closes the door, I turn around to Susan Kohner and I say, well, honey child, get you, I didn't know y'all had a mammy. Well, of course, you'd be shot if you said that today, but that was the whole crux of the movie, to show the bigotry and how ugly this woman could be, and everybody, what ended up is that everybody I know that didn't know that I did the part, they hate that character. Everybody I have met just hates that woman with contempt. Can't stand her.
But that means you were wonderful as her.
Whose father was Carl Ballantyne, and did not know, and we've been close friends for years, Sarah and I, and my son. She had no idea that I was in the movie. And she said, well, I've hated your mother for years.
But that means you were perfect. That means you were perfect. And the heavy is a plum roll. You know, everybody
yes,
looks
at those. I was very lucky. Everybody remembers that woman. They hate her, but they don't know it's his I. They have no idea. I have credit. I have screen credit, fortunately, but they don't recognize me. They don't recognize me.
Yeah, you know, and I was remarking about that with my husband, Teddy. I said, she's done so much, and I don't think people realize it's her.
Well, it's like in War of the Worlds. I mean, I have a wig on. No one's going to recognize me at all. I'm still, little Sylvia Van Buren is all by herself. Ann Robinson and Sylvia Van Buren are completely two different people. Everybody loves Sylvia, and nobody knows Ann.
Right.
And even Steven Spielberg adores Sylvia.
Oh, wow.
and most all of his movies, somewhere in his movies, the name Sylvia will come up.
Oh, really?
Yes.
What was the other piece you wanted to talk about?
He fell in love with Sylvia when he was a young man. He has a crush on her when he was a little boy.
Oh, wow. See that? You know, you've still got it. You know, what is it Carolyn Jones says when she did the Addams Family? When you've got it, you've got it.
I loved her. We were close friends. We lived very close to one another when she was married to Aaron Spelling. Lived on Talmadge Street over in the Los Feliz area, and they lived right down the block from me when she was married to Aaron. We used to spend a lot of time together. And Carolyn was under contract to Paramount also. She has a very small part in War of the Worlds, but it was edited, but she has screen credit.
And she was a natural blonde.
I believe you're right, absolutely. Yeah. She's a lovely girl, very talented.
Incredible actress. You wanted to talk about another movie, but I couldn't hear you during the music.
Oh, it was Fury. It was a television series.
Fury.
With Peter Graves. That was a lovely, lovely Western. And I was hired for that because I could ride my own horse. They didn't need a stunt girl. And because I had made a couple of other Westerns with Edward Small, with George Montgomery and Buster Crabbe. Some Westerns, and they were so much fun to do, and every once in a while I see them on the Western Channel. But Fury I had no idea that Fury was so well accepted. A lot of conventions that I go to, people are there with memorabilia and books and pictures from Fury, with Bobby Diamond and Peter Graves and William Fawcett with the beautiful horse Fury, which his real name was Beauty, to autograph these photographs. I had no idea how popular that was, and how popular it has remained. And that's where you just mentioned, what's the little girl's name? Washburn?
Yeah, Beverly Washburn.
Had mentioned her name earlier before. I met her on Fury. She was she couldn't have been more than about 8 or 9 years old when I met her. And she had a part on Fury, and she had to jump off a rock. And I was trying to tell her how to do it, because I had been a stunt girl. And I wanted to tell her how to jump and how to land so she wouldn't hurt herself. And then years later, we ran into each other at a convention, and there was Beverly, and she said, "Oh my goodness, my mother." That's right, she was at Captain Celluloid's convention. I'd forgotten that. Thank you,
She's
Stefan.
a good friend of him.
And she remembered that I was the woman. Her mother always appreciated that I wanted to help her so she wouldn't hurt herself jumping off the rock. The lovely little girl.
Yeah,
and turned out to be a lovely young woman.
And again, a hardworking actress and a good actress. She one of my favorite wagon trains is with her and Lou Costello, with the Tobias Jones story where he's finds this little orphan and takes care of her, and they kind of slip into the wagon train. And at first people think he's like some kind of pervert, but then they realize that she has no one, and he's just taking care of her. That's one of my favorite wagon train episodes. You've been on The Life and Times of Wyatt Earp with Hugh O'Brien. He just did a memoir of his life, a book about his life. What was he like to work with? He seems like such a charming man.
Well, I've known him forever. We were just sort of everybody, when we'd all go on junkets together to promote something, Hugh was there, and we were all just sort of thrust together. We were just good friends for years and years, and it was so much fun to work with him. And now I've noticed there's a Wyatt Earp running now on one of the channels, and so I've been watching it rather faithfully to see if my episode does come up, and it probably will eventually. But, he was a lot of fun. I ran into him, a couple of years ago at a convention at the Beverly Garland Hotel out in North Hollywood, and it was wonderful to see him again after all these years. He still looks fine, and he was just a nice kid and a wonderful dancer. Loved dancing with him. He was a great Roomba dancer, and a lot of fun. Just a lot of fun. A couple of times I've met him through my lifetime, and I've made some physical changes in my appearance. And every once in a while, he will come up to me and flirt with me, and I'll say, "Hugh, it's Anne." And "You're kidding." And I said, "Nope." Got you again.
Get your hand up.
Yes. No, he's just a nice kid.
Yeah,
and as I said, I loved dancing with him. He was a wonderful dancer.
I'm going to ask you something, but first, I just want to comment on Rory Calhoun. One of the underrated actors. I mean, he was big at the time, but I think he's kind of gotten lost in history. He was a really handsome young man and a good actor.
Gorgeous. He's gorgeous. My goodness, what is it, about 6'6"?
I'm telling you, he had legs that went all the way up to you know where.
Oh, he was beautiful. Beautiful man, and charming, sweet and charming. And I remember I went to dinner, an actor friend of mine from Paramount. He was a good friend of his, and we went over to his house for dinner one night when he was married to Lita Barron. And I remember he had a bunch of kittens, and he gave me one of his little gray kittens, and I took it home to my mother, and she called it Leroy after Rory Calhoun and his wife. And oh no, I think I did. I worked with him. Yes, I did.
The
I don't remember the name of the series though, but I remember I have some pictures while I'm on a horse side saddle, and my husband Jaime Bravo is standing there talking with Rory Calhoun, and I remember loving the way he had a really great haircut, and I said, "Where do you get your hair cut?" Because it's a very interesting thing. Matadors are very superstitious about how they have their hair cut and where they have it cut. And he said, Drucker's out here in Beverly Hills. And so after that, my husband always went to Drucker's to have his hair cut. But Roy Calhoun and his wife they were just a lot of fun. An awful lot of a jokester. He was quite a jokester. He liked to play tricks on you.
It was called The Texan. And you were in the episode Borrowed Time, Ann Carter.
Oh, yes. Oh, dear. Oh, dear me. I've got to see these things. I just got to, now that the television has all these episodes, the internet, I'll be able to look back and get all the names and the characters and be able to find them.
It'll be so much
fun to look back on my past.
You have a legacy.
I had a terrible house fire in October of 2011, and I've lost everything. I've lost all my films. I lost everything I've ever done. I've lost all my memorabilia, all my one-sheets, lobby cards, everything I've ever collected is all gone. All my autographs, all the wonderful things that I had from Jack Webb, and my one-sheets that autographed for Gene Barry and Lester Maine and George Pell. Everything is gone. And so,
I'm sorry.
I know it's such a shame. I don't have much. I don't have anything to look back on. But now that you have the internet, and I can find all the films again.
Yeah, and a lot of Turner Classic is bringing back a lot of these things, and there's a lot of classic film places where you can, buy them for like $9 and stuff like that.
I'm always looking all the time.
I'm looking at your film career. And it's just breathtaking. I mean, you and people like Julie Adams, you are my life.
She was a real movie star. She was in an awful lot of big Universal movies with an enormous stars like Jimmy Stewart and people like that. No, she was a true movie star.
I was poor. I was poor, so I didn't see a lot of movies, but I did see a lot of TV. And so I know you. You know what I mean?
Yes, exactly. Well, I didn't make a heck of a lot of movies. I probably made more television than I made motion pictures.
Right. How do you see the industry now today? Oh, I heard that whistle. I heard that whistle. Was that a whistle?
That was my Stefan. No.
Okay, this might be when you want to say pass.
I don't care for it. I shouldn't say that. Maybe people won't hire me. But nevertheless, it's so different. It doesn't. It's not romantic. It's not beautiful. It's not. It's hard to explain. I don't have the right adjectives for it. I'm so sorry. We don't have the characters. We don't have the individuals that we had before.
Right.
I see one blonde, and they all seem to look alike to me. I don't see people that I want to follow. Like Harrison Ford, someone like that. We don't have. He's about the last of the movie stars that if he's in a movie, I'll go see it.
Right.
We don't have them anymore. And Johnny Depp, I adore him. And Robert Downey Jr. I love these people. I'll go see movies that they're in. Of course, Meryl Streep. She's a chameleon. I don't understand her.
Yeah.
Don't know
Glenn Close. Glenn Close is amazing.
He is. Pardon me?
Glenn Close is amazing.
Oh, I adore her. I haven't seen her in a long time, and I wish she would do something. I don't know why she's not working, unless she's on cable or someplace that I have not seen her. Because I really admire her. I would give anything to have seen Sunset Boulevard. My son saw her do Sunset Boulevard on Broadway. She was absolutely a mad woman. Never seen anything like it in his life. And I missed it.
Actually, on YouTube, they do have the one scene where a couple of her songs that she sings, with one look. That's incredible.
Oh, I know. Isn't that beautiful? Unfortunately, I have seen excerpts of things when she was doing for their birthday. It's a tribute to the author for his birthday.
Right.
Oh, no. I would love to see her again. I'd love to see her do something. Mm-hmm. And I'm so sorry I missed them.
Have you played with theater? Have you played with theater?
No, I haven't. That's such a commitment. I'm just too lazy to do it, I guess, and it's such a commitment to go into theater. We have so many lovely little, small theaters around here, and I wouldn't think of doing anything downtown at the Civic Center, the big house at all. But it's just too much of a commitment. I just guess I'm too lazy now. It'll take up too much of your time. I'm not accustomed to stage.
Right.
Some people, it's just their life. They can't live without it. But I only had that one performance at the Circle Theater, Wind Without Rain, and it was quite an experience being in the theater in the round for the very first time, and that's how I was discovered by Milt Lewis for Paramount Studio, and that was the one and only play I ever did, except for Hollywood High School. Oh, I've forgotten her name. Diana Lynn. Diana Lynn. I was right in the middle of it, and they stopped my show. They stopped the show right where in the middle of I stepped off stage to do something, some character work, and suddenly they said, don't go on. Diana Lynn hasn't been seated. And I said, Diana Lynn, I just shouted out, hasn't been what? Diana Lynn for the rest of the night had to have me just stare at her.
That's why you don't do theater.
And that's why I don't do theater and stuff like that.
It's that, some actors will look and say, I love the eye contact, and that kind of thing. And for me, I don't know if you've ever seen that old movie, Maxie, and I think it's Glenn Close in that, where she's got a ghost that keeps going into her body that wants to be famous, like back in the 20s. It's an old 20s flapper.
Yes, that's quite a while ago. I vaguely remember that. I've forgotten the title. I have seen that.
Yeah, and she's on the stage, but the ghost isn't taking over, and she's supposed to be Cleopatra, and she's got this.
Oh, yes,
isn't that the funniest scene? That's the greatest scene, because that would be me. I would be standing there, passing out, going, and then all of a sudden the ghost comes in and she says, okay, let's do this again,
Oh, speaking of ghosts, have you ever seen Blight Spirit?
I love Blight Spirit.
Isn't that wonderful? The movie, I've never seen the play. But
I saw Angela Lansbury a couple of years ago on Broadway doing it. Go ahead.
I saw the movie years and years ago with Rex Harrison. That's the first time he was introduced to the American audience, I think.
Right. I love the movie. It's very hard to get your hands on. But a couple of years ago, Lansbury did it. And the only thing was, for our particular evening, the sound was a little off and her voice was very soft. So it was a little hard to see, to hear her. But something happened. And I like going to theater because, bloopers happen and there are no retakes.
Well, I know, but look where you are in New York. Look what you have to see. You can pick and choose the best there is.
Yeah. And something happened, and they said something, and it came out like a word, and the wrong word came out. And they started laughing so hard that they had to bury their heads in the pillows to calm down because, they couldn't, the one guy, Rupert Holmes, looked at her like, I don't believe that just came out of your mouth. And she turned bright red. And she says, I said that wrong. I said that wrong. And they started laughing. And, of course, we were all belly laughing at that point. The
last time I got to see anything on Broadway was in 97, Titanic. I saw Titanic. That was the most breathtaking production I've ever seen. It was
a real feel-good play.
Real feel-good. Oh, no, that Titanic was something else. And the stage actually tipping on hydraulics where the ship was sinking right before your eyes. I mean, I just cried at the end. The ending was, the music was so beautiful, beautiful. And it came out here to Los Angeles. It wasn't exactly the director wasn't the same. I didn't get the same feeling as we got in New York, but I did a very sneaky thing. I took a tape recorder with me, and I got all the beautiful music.
Oh, wow.
I mean, I'm not supposed to do that, and I probably shouldn't admit it, but I've got it. I've got Titanic.
And I won't rat you out either. I don't know about anybody else.
I got to see Andrews and Victoria. I forgot about that. It wasn't the same year, but I did get to see that. She was marvelous, and it was like previews, and my seat was right in the front row, and right on the right hand side of her stage left, where all the action was going on. Oh God, it was so wonderful to get to see Julie Andrews and Victoria. That was a terrific show.
I just want to mention, I'm an absolute idiot. I'm like a 5-year-old child. We went to see Mary Poppins in Broadway, and that is spectacular because it follows a little more the actual books, where Poppins is a little darker. And Mr. Banks' original nanny was a really nasty lady, and Mary Poppins isn't nasty, but she's a little darker, and it was really good. But the way one minute you're looking at a cast of people, and all of a sudden there's a giant umbrella, and I mean a giant umbrella that covers most of the stage, and you're asking yourself, where did it come from? That's how good they were at sliding things out. So theater is lovely. If you can take children to it, even local theater, it's a different experience than movies. It's live. It's real people in front of them. It sparks imagination, and I really like it. Let me ask you something. In your career, what stands out in your mind in your career?
In what respect, my dear?
Like memories, or your fondest memories, or your worst memory, or something that you look back and you go, yeah, that was the best. I was spot on then.
I would venture to say the premiere of The Star Is Born, where I was one of the hostesses that brought the stars up for Army Archer to interview. I got to it's on Kinescope. It's on the leader to The Star Is Born. Judy Garland, the premiere Star Is Born. They always open up the DVD with the premiere of everyone arriving and being interviewed. And I was one of the hostesses. And it was the biggest night in Hollywood that ever existed or ever will exist again. There wasn't a star. I mean, Clark Gable, the people, the names of it just went on and on and on. The biggest stars in the country that we'll never see again, they're practically all gone. And I got to introduce them to Army Archer. It was the biggest thrill of my life. And I remember that I was able to pronounce Cati Jurado. She was brand new in the business, and I was able to pronounce her name correctly because I spoke a little Spanish, and she was so thrilled because I said her name correctly and didn't sort of, butcher it like so many people did. But that was the night, the Star of Stars. It'll never happen again. And I wish I could see the entire, whoever took all the film that night. Unfortunately, it's edited, for the beginning of The Star Is Born, so you don't see everything. I would like to see the rest of the stars that were there. It just went on forever, It just went on forever. If you have a chance to catch that, please do.
It might be on YouTube, actually, because a lot of film historians, they're putting a lot of things up there on YouTube because these are capsules in time. And,
yes, they are.
They're so important.
Yes, this one in particular is a capsule in time. As I said, it'll never happen again. Hollywood at its finest. Hollywood and everyone, all the stars that were there. And one other time, I was the hostess of Liberace's movie. Art Linkletter and I were the host and hostess for the opening and the premiere of Liberace, Forever Yours, I think the name of it. I'm not quite sure if that was the correct name. And, Warner Brothers was so kind to me. They were really pushing me. Warner Brothers wanted me to do something. They sent me everywhere. I went to back east to Saranac Lake for the opening of a movie with, oh goodness, I'm losing people's names, Virginia Mayo. And I think Paul Newman wasn't there, but Silver Chalice was the name of it. But Paramount the Warner Brothers sent me everywhere. They really had faith in me and were pushing me. And then, right at the height of my career and everything, all the plans they had for me, I met a dashing bullfighter and escaped and ran off to Mexico. So that's
Big 99 next to Judy Garland. You watched it, okay?
Oh yes, my son is reminding me. When I was over at Warner Brothers and Jack Webb was interested in me and doing so many things at Warner Brothers. Jack Warner was interested in why I was being pushed over there by the publicity department, and he invited me to his house for dinner. I was very privileged at a long table with an awful lot of executive and interesting stars and people. And later that evening, we all watched a movie in Jack Warner's private screening room in his home, and in walks Judy Garland and her husband and sits right down next to me, and there we saw The Star Is Born. And I mean, I have really amnesia, self-induced amnesia for the rest of the evening. I was so overwhelmed, I don't even know, I couldn't remember my name.
I think I fell in love with Jack Webb in Sunset Boulevard.
Jack Warner.
Yeah.
Jack Warner, the head of Warner Brothers.
Yeah, I think I fell in love with Jack Webb, though, when Sunset Boulevard, because he's really funny in that movie, kind of precocious, Let me ask you something.
Oh, Sunset Strip is you're talking about? Yes.
Yeah. Sunset Boulevard. He was in that with William Holden and, what's her name?
Excuse me. Yeah, you're right. Sunset Boulevard.
Let me ask you something. And we're running over a little bit because we had a sound glitch, but I want everybody to know how prolific your career is. But the studios, and I asked Julie about this, it seems like they got a bad rap. Yeah, they were controlling, and they would do a lot of cover-up, but they protected their stars. Now we see so much. I mean, there's no protection for the stars. I mean, the paparazzi is all over them. They don't, you go out to get a glass of soda, and you've got 35 people chasing after you.
Well, then you should yourself.
Pardon me?
If you have 35 people chasing you, behave yourself. Stop acting the way they do. They act so foolish.
Thank you.
They're lucky that he is chasing them.
Yeah, that was, you hear about stars saying, and don't take pictures of my kids, and don't do this, and don't do that. And I understand there's a fine line between somebody having dinner and you just walk over and interrupt their, something that you really shouldn't be. And there's another. Manners. Everybody needs manners. Not only the people, the fans, but also the performers, the stars. They all need. I don't understand this. I'm going to go and hide away on an island because I can't stand the fans. Well, these are the people that paid for that island.
Exactly. Why did you get into the business in the first place if you're going to hide out somewhere because you can't stand the publicity? I can understand why you don't want your children photographed because there's so much perversion nowadays. I mean, you don't dare, and you have to be very careful about guarding your privacy when it comes to your family and your children. But to run off, like you say, and not want to, you go out at night and then you hide your face and please don't photograph me is absolutely absurd.
Yeah, I mean, it's to the point where when you see an actor, you're almost afraid to even acknowledge them.
Isn't that so true? It's odd. It's very odd.
It's very odd. These are people.
Joan Crawford loved going. She said, "You always don't dare go out anywhere and not look your best and behave your best.
Right.
They're the people who made you.
It's an odd phenomena that I don't quite understand, because if you're getting into acting, you want people to see you. You want people to recognize you. That's how you're going to get work, because people are going to say, I like them. But on the flip side, when, they're rude to fans, I kind of think, wow, that's sabotaging, but evidently it's not.
I don't understand that either. I don't understand rudeness in any way.
Yeah.
The fans are the ones who buy the tickets. They're the ones that pay your salary.
Right. Yeah. Let me ask you something else. And I'm going to talk about the film industry with filming. And you said the Golden Chalice and stuff like that. And back in the day, you had a scene where you knew two men were being intimate without them showing it. They might show the lead-in where he rubs his back or something like that, or two women, or a man and a woman. Now, I think they show too much. And I don't
recall, what you're referring to when you say they might intimate, and back in the days where I don't know, but I don't know what. I don't recall anything like that. It was
right. No.
Very harsh and
now when you see a movie, it's right in your face.
And I'm sick of it.
Yeah, I mean, I've had 3 children. I know what sex is. Teddy and I saw it through a bar on a pull-out couch when we were young. So I know what sex is. I don't need to see a bunch of people doing it on a film. I mean, okay, we know that it's getting to that intimate part and the door closes. I don't need to see behind the door to understand that they're having sex.
But no, they never did. You never saw that in movies. Now it's right on television at 10 o'clock at night, between 10 and 11, on one of my very favorite shows on Thursday night that I probably shouldn't mention what the show is, but all you do is see men jumping in bed with each other, and I'm tired of it. When it's almost like why are the writers doing this? Aren't they clever enough to write a decent scene? I'm watching this television show because I'm interested in the television show. I don't want to see 2 men in bed. I'm not interested in that.
I don't want to see 2 women in bed. I don't want to see a man and a woman in bed. I don't want to see 2 women and a man in bed.
I'm interested in the story.
I know what sex is. I don't need sex education, because that's not sex education. That's just plain sex, and that's not love. And I'm a little concerned because, and I wrote a little poem for my show last week about children being on the same train as us. Life is like a train. We're all on this train. It called the planet Earth a train. We're on it, and children are on it with us. And we're forgetting that when we're watching this crap, our children are walking back and forth, getting a soda, and if you don't think a child is paying attention, go in the kitchen and whisper ice cream and find out how fast you get mobbed. Children are sponges. They watch everything. They listen to everything. I look at television now, and one of the shows that really pisses me off to no end is Friends and How I Met Your Mother. They're all supposed to be best friends, but they're all screwing each other.
I've never watched it.
I don't get it.
Seen it.
I don't get what happened, and I mean, this is what our children have grown up with. This is what our grandchildren are watching, and
exactly.
I think that we've lost the panache to pull out a scene where we're not having an almost pornographic soft porn moment.
That's all you have to resort to.
Yeah.
If that's all you have resort to, you can't be a very clever writer.
Right.
Then go read a book and copy it. But you don't resort to just sex all the time. It's there's no purpose in it.
I mean,
time it doesn't even relate to the story.
Yeah.
But now what I'm most afraid of, and fortunately I don't have any young children, except I am afraid for my grandchildren, is the internet and the computer. What's on there that you can click on and get anything. There's no way to stop it.
No, there isn't. It's like Pandora's box. It's all there, and they are able to see it all, no matter how many safeguards we put on it. And they're growing up to think. Back in the 60s and 50s, they said, "Oh, women are being used as sex symbols." Well, tell me how Disney hasn't turned Miley Ray Cyrus into a sex symbol. Okay, she was she was an 18-year-old kid. Yeah, she was an 18-year-old kid pretending to be 14, and men and boys look. Yeah, and men and boys look at her as Hannah Montana, and she's kissing boys. This is an 18-year-old girl kissing boys. But in their heads, she's a 14-year-old girl. She's looking for it. I think that we're getting very, very close to being a society where the lines are really blurred. And I think the industry, as long as people continue to absorb it and ask for it, they're just going to shove it down our throats.
Well, I would hope. I thought at first we'd sort of gotten over that, and we're getting back to good stories again. But I think it's television that's more offensive than motion pictures.
Yeah. Television just annoys me at this point. And my Teddy, he has Alzheimer's, and he'll put on something like Friends, which runs all afternoon on some of the channels, and I'll say, okay, I had enough of this crap. I can't watch that girl and the paleontologist there wake up under the dinosaur one more time. They're supposed to be friends. I've got a lot of friends, and I've only had sex with my husband.
I Love Lucy, and that goes all day long.
Yeah, I think the industry...
Lucy, and I never get bored with it. I never get tired of it.
She was funny.
She's so clever and so funny and so pretty to look at and so adorable. I never get tired of Lucille Ball, and I Love Lucy. And
yes.
And the people, the whole cast is so adorable.
Mm-hmm.
The cast and crew are adorable, and that's what I wish more people would just put that on for their children.
Yes.
See how innocent and how much fun we had. It's absolutely, as Stefan said, it's absolutely timeless.
It is.
You never get bored with it, and it's just the way we did live at one time, and how charming it was.
Mm-hmm. Your fondest memory in a role. Your fondest memory in a role.
Oh, my fondest memory. Help me out, Stefan.
One of the greatest nights was meeting oh my God!
Where are we?
Jenny.
Oh, that's right. One of my absolute favorite motion pictures. I went to a lovely birthday party at Mel Torme's birthday party at Henry Mancini's house, and I was with Wes Parker. Oh, I adored Wes Parker. He was first baseman for the L.A. Dodgers, and we went to this party that night, and I didn't know anybody, but they were most gracious to me, and everyone was asking about their most favorite movie, and finally they said, Miss Robinson, and what everybody, of course, had Gone with the Wind or Citizen Kane, went on and on and on, and I said, well, if I only had one movie to watch in all my life, Stefan, if I only had one movie to watch. Excuse me, he was overdoing something. It would be Portrait of Jenny.
I just watched that! Oh, my God, I love that movie.
That is my absolute most favorite movie of all times, is Portrait of Jenny. And they said, oh, well, have you met Robert Nathan? And I said, no, I never met Robert Nathan. And he said, well, let me introduce you to him. He was standing right next to me, and right behind me, and I didn't know it. And there was Robert Nathan, who wrote the book, Portrait of Jenny. And I looked at him, and I said, who was she? Who was she, Mr. Nathan? Who was she? And he said, she was a little girl on the corner down the street from me, and I knew that she was not from this world. And that's all he said to me. And then he said, my dear, you have made my life.
I'm telling you, that movie is timeless. Joseph Cotton, one of the best actors out there. I loved him.
That's probably the greatest movie he made. I think that was the best movie he ever made.
Yeah, he was incredible in it, and everybody did their part perfectly. And what that movie is about, Portrait of Jenny, is a starving artist meets a little girl who seems to be dressed for the wrong time period, and she says, "Wait for me." Wait for me. And then a few months later, he meets her again, and she's older, and she keeps telling him, wait for me. And he starts a portrait of her, and
isn't that portrait magnificent? It's so gorgeous.
Yeah.
And I actually saw it hanging on over. Her name was Isley, I believe, and I saw it in her parents' home in Texas over their mantelpiece. I actually saw the portrait.
Wow. Yeah, I love that movie. That's an incredible movie.
I adore it. I mean, it's so beautiful because every scene opens up. The way they have it diffused, it looks like a canvas of painting. Mm-hmm. It looks like an actual canvas.
Yeah.
Oh no, and of course the music, Debussy. It's just magnificent. There's not one bad thing with. I don't understand why poor dear Selznick lost his shirt on that because it wasn't accepted when it first came out.
Right.
And what a shame, but there's another movie, The Time It's Lasted, It's Eternal. It's just, time is eternal. It will never, ever get old. That movie just will go on and on. It's so beautiful.
Yeah, it's kind of like The Ghost of Mrs. Muir with Rex Harrison.
That's charming. That's a very sweet movie.
Yeah, and it's filmed beautifully, and I love the scene where he comes and says, you're right, you have to go on living, and you have to forget about me. I love that scene where the ghost actually realizes that he's actually ruining her life. He's dead, she's alive, and that's the way it is. She has to live.
And he becomes a dream to her. She just can't remember where she knows him from. Oh, no, it's a charm. It's a lovely movie.
Yeah, these are classic
my favorite types of movies are always time travel.
Right.
I love a good ghost story too. But my favorite one, the Uninvited. Do you know that movie?
Yep, that is absolute. Yep. I have that, and we're going to watch that in a couple of days. In like 2 days, we're going to watch that. I watch that at least 6 times a year.
Do you really? Good for you. I love it.
I love it. Ray Milland. I love him. He was an incredible actor. And I have a little story about that movie. The woman, the actress that played his sister, was not going to do the role because they gave her the script and she was sitting in bed and she was reading it and she tossed it on the end of the bed and said, I'm not going to do this. I don't know. It's not for me. And her windows were closed, but her curtains blew straight out. She picked up the phone, called them, and said, I'll do it.
Oh, well, that's exciting. I got chills thinking about that.
Yeah,
that's marvelous.
Yeah, that's the story about that. Yeah, and she called him and said, "I'll do it." Evidently, it's based on a book which was based on a story that is supposedly has some foundation in it. I'm
trying to find that book. I would love to be able to get that book.
Yes.
I know my mother was reading it. I remember one time, and I had a boyfriend across the street who broke my heart, and he took back his the track shoe he let me wear around my neck for the summer. And my mother was reading The Uninvited and was right at the ghost story, the scariest part. And here I come wailing into the room crying, Gage took the shoe away from me. He doesn't love me anymore. My mother got so angry. She grabbed that shoe from around my neck and she marched across the street, knocked on his door, and when he answered the door, she threw the shoe in his face because I scared her half to death when she was reading The Uninvited.
Right.
Oh, no. I love that. I want to read that book. I never read it. I would love to read that book.
Another great period movie from back in that era is James Mason, A Place of One's Own. Do you know that one?
No, what's the title?
A Place of One's Own.
I don't know that title at all, and I love James Mason.
Yeah,
I love Pandora and the Flying Dutchman. That's
right.
I've got that on 16 millimeter. I love that film.
Wow.
I love James Mason, but I've never heard that title before.
Yeah, he's they're supposed to be an older couple. Of course, he was young. And they're retiring out to, someplace in Scotland, and they buy an old dilapidated mansion because it's cheap. He's a Scot. He's supposed to be cheap. And he says, what's wrong with it that you're giving it away so cheaply? And they said nothing. It hasn't been lived in for 50 years, but of course it's got a ghost in it. And it's a beautiful story, and it's just one of my favorites. I love old movies, and I wish, I know Turner Classic will play it maybe over Halloween, I hope. Once in a while they play it. It's hard to get on these movies on old, things. But a lot of your stuff is available on YouTube, and a lot of these old series that you were in are in format, like, War of the Worlds. They have that where you can buy it, and all of those different series. So a lot of people that have been missing your work can find your work in collections, like Ben Casey, the TV series. They have collections of them now that they're bringing out. I have Gone with Travel, the collection of that, So a lot of your work is out there, and like I said, you're incredible. I just don't think they know it's you.
Well, you're probably right. But then again, you're so far in the television series. We don't watch them anymore like we used to. Right. And they used to be all week long, and you were accustomed to the people. You were looking forward to seeing them again. Yeah. But we don't have that anymore. So people would not remember. I'm just very lucky that I go to a convention and people remember me from like I say, from Fury or from War of the Worlds, of course. Yes. If I ever go to a convention, that's the only reason they come to visit me is because of that movie.
And there's so much more to you. There's so much more to you.
Life.
Yeah,
Pardon me?
There is so much more to you than just that.
Well, but you're that's very kind of you to say that. That's very sweet of you. But you're very lucky if you're remembered for one thing. I mean, I look at the works of people and no matter how, like the Ten Commandments, you're remembered for one great movie, and you've made hundreds of them.
Yeah.
But Charlton Heston is remembered for one great movie.
Right, yeah, and he was in a lot of black and whites too, so
forever.
So please tell them where they can meet you, where they can contact you.
I beg your pardon?
Tell our listeners where they can meet you or contact you.
Well, at my they can meet me here in Los Angeles. As I said, I'll be at the Westin Hotel over Halloween weekend, and the Hollywood show. So you can get in touch with me. I have a Facebook page now, so they can get in touch with me on that.
You need to get a website. I'm
working on a website. I did have one, and but now I haven't kept it up because there's so many other things in my way right now that I haven't kept it up. But I have a dear friend who lives very close by who's going to get my website back up on the air for me, on television for me again.
Ann Robinson, I want to tell you I am so impressed with your credits, and I am so honored that you came on my show tonight.
Well, the honor is all mine that you thought well enough of me to ask me on your show. It's so well received that so many people are listening right now, and I'm thrilled to be on it. How kind of you. How kind of you, and really, it was very lovely of you, because we have never met before, and then out of the blue you call and say you would like to interview me. I was so surprised, shocked, and pleased, and thank you so very much. It's been a lovely, and if it weren't for Terry Soto, we wouldn't have met, I suppose.
Yes.
And how gracious of him. We were just speaking on the telephone when I was on my way back from the show I had done over the weekend in up north of San Francisco in Moraga. we saw a bunch of pictures of me on the internet, and so we called him up to say, why are you putting all these pictures of me? And so we called back, and we had such a good time speaking, and then soon after that, you called me. So if it weren't for Terry, we wouldn't have met, I suppose. And I'm most honored to have been on your show, and I thank you so much. You've been very gracious.
You have been wonderful. It's been so incredible listening. I can't imagine having a career like yours. I really can't imagine. I mean, to look back and Raymond Burr and everybody Hugh O'Brien and all these actors and actresses that you've interacted with and acted with and all the parts you've done. And I cannot imagine having a career like that because...
Well, when I was a little girl living on Gardner Street, and I wanted to say, right down the street from me was Key Luke, who was the number 1 son in all the Charlie Chan movies. He lived right down the street from me, and I used to wave to him every day. And my next-door neighbor, Renee Logan, she used to have a commissary over at the studio next to Sam Goldwyn, and I used to be able to go over anytime I wanted to go on the movie lot. It was so much fun. I knew the Dead End Kids. I knew Boston Blackie, Chester Morris. I got to see all
Leo
these people.
Leo
Gorcey, absolutely. Hunts Hall, and all of these people. They were so much fun. I loved the Dead End Kids. You always wanted to be when you were little kids. You wanted to be tough. And then I just watched them make film, and I got to meet Freddie Bartholomew, who was, I think, probably one of the greatest child actors that ever lived.
Yes.
He and Mickey Rooney in Captain's Courageous. I mean, those two, you couldn't beat them. The most wonderful child actors. But my life was absolutely charmed. I grew up in Hollywood, right next to a Hollywood studio, right next to Sam Goldwyn's, and I could go on the lot anytime I wanted to and visit the sound stages and watch them make movies since I was, 8, 9, 10, 11 years old.
Wow.
I've lived a charmed life, and never did I realize that I was going to get to grow up and work on one of those stages someday, and I was going to be sort of a kind of a movie star myself. And I really have lived a charmed life, and I'm very, very grateful.
I mean, yeah, because, for one person to have one hit, or be in one part, they might think that was the dream of a world, and then they don't get more parts, so they go and become something else. But you've made a living on it, and that's what is incredible. It's work. It's absolutely work. Huh?
I still get residuals. Isn't that fun?
Yes.
I'm thrilled to death when I'll get an overseas residual from some movie that, like an imitation of life, and it'll pop up all over the world somewhere, probably in a foreign language. Someone has dubbed my voice into a foreign language, but I'll get a small little residual check from it.
That's wonderful. It
is thrilling.
Yes. I want to thank you so much for being on our show tonight. And like I said, this is being recorded, and I'm going to have to do a little editing because we did have a hiccup in the beginning. But as soon as it's done, I will be posting it on Facebook, and I will, give us, your son a link and everything, and you can download it. And I'm going to see about putting it on YouTube, so you'll be getting a lot of people looking at it there. And I can't thank you enough and your son for helping us out here.
Yes, I need him. He's my memory. He's my computer. He helps me so much. But before we say goodnight and say goodbye, I would like to say goodnight and goodbye to my grandchildren, Samuel and Victoria. So I don't edit them out.
Okay, I will not edit them out, I promise. And thank you.
I want to say give my love and a kiss, and it's nighttime. Go to bed. I got school tomorrow.
Right.
Don't
what
argue
are you doing
with your mother and father.
Yeah.
Go to bed.
Go to bed. It's time to go to bed. Thank you so much. I'm going to let you go now, and I'm going to close out the show.
Oh, God bless you, and thank you so much. It's been such a pleasure, Mo. Thank you so much.
Thank you. God bless you both.
And God bless you, too, my dear. Bye-bye. And happy Halloween.
Thank you. One of my favorite holidays. Thank you.
Me too.
Night-night.
Good night.
That was wonderful. Next week, Julie Adams from The Creature of the Black Lagoon is going to be on. And we have Dr. Sandy Peters. She's a medium. She's coming on Tuesday at 9 o'clock. Julie Adams will be on the 29th at 7 p.m. Thank you, bosses, for letting the show run over because we had a little bit of trouble. I want to thank everybody for listening. Terry Soto, you're my hero. Thank you so much for helping out with this. God bless you all. I love you all. And have a good night. Everybody sleep in heavenly peace or sleep, having sex or whatever it is you do. Okay? Thank you.
Where over the rainbow birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow while
Thank you for visiting me at my lair. And God bless you and yours.
where over the rainbow birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow while can't
Thank you for visiting me at my lair. And God bless you and yours. A narc. And he says, they think you're a cop. And I says, well, what are you? Are you a teacher? And he says, no, I'm a student. He looked like he was 43, but he was a student. and I laughed so hard. But as it turned out, one of the English teachers knew booger all. And I finally walked up to him after class and says, they all think I'm a narc, but you're the narc, aren't you? He says, don't let anybody know.
It was Serpico?
Yeah, he was undercover and busted one of the English teachers for having parties in his house. It was a very interesting year in my life. It was like that one year where the world opened up for me, and I wasn't sure I wanted to be in that particular world, Kind of like landing in an episode of Seinfeld. Do you know what I mean?
When I think of how beautiful Ireland is, and you say just a rural area, well, I can just picture how gorgeous that is, and then you come over and see what you had to deal with in the United States. It was a culture shock for you.
Yeah, because it was a farm. Yeah, it was a farm, and the house is still there, and I'm grateful. One of my cousins owns it, and in the 70s, because thatch roofs over there are very expensive to replace, so they just took the old thatch roof off of it, and they put like this corrugated plastic stuff on it back somewhere in about 1970. And when they did that, yeah, they found a bunch of rifles from the Troubles, and then my other cousin from England, one of my uncles moved over there, and he bought the house from the family, and he was able to put a thatch roof back on it, and it looks beautiful. And it's just nice to know that the old man's house is still there, you know.
That's so. How long has it been in the family?
I guess the farm. I know that my great-grandfather lived there. My grandfather was born there and all. So I'm going to say they came. What it was is we recycle the same names. Garrett, Joseph, you know what I mean? The same names. And I don't know why, but they never pick new names. But we can trace my great-great-grandfather back to Mayo, and then his son Garrett bought a farm in Roscommon, Castlerea, Roscommon, in Lisbon.
Oh, that's lovely. You know, I was so fortunate that my father, my children have inherited my father and my grandfather's farm. We still have a family farm in Ohio, in a small town in Kenton, 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 Ohio. We still have a lovely 300, 400-acre farm back there that's a working farm. And it's so nice to know that one has kept up the tradition of having a farm in their family and not to let it go and sell it off for houses to be built on. But I haven't been back there for a while, but my children, we dearly love it and are very sentimental about having a farm in the family. So I understand your feeling completely. It's lovely.
Yeah, it's someplace that, you know, so many people don't know where they came from. They came to America, and you know, years and years ago. But we have the luxury of knowing where we came from and everything. So that's nice. Mother
came from Germany. They came from Germany and settled here in about 1750. So we go back ways. And no, it is charming to know. I haven't researched the entire family, but just my father's side on his mother's side of the family. But I would like to continue on with that. You just you want to do something, and something else sidetracks you, and you don't get around to it. But it is lovely to know where you came from.
You were at the top of your game, and I mean, you were in the War of the Worlds with Gene Barry. I'm going to go back on this list, and we're re-talking about things because we had an audio problem early. You did a lot of uncredited stuff in 1950, and then Racket Squad, you got credit. You got credit for Racket Squad, and then you did City Beneath the Sea, which was pretty big. And
I don't recognize those titles at all.
Well, you were uncredited in a lot of different stuff. You did an Abbott and Costello movie where you were...
Yes, you're quite right about that. I beg your pardon. Yes, I was a Mirage.
Right.
In one of the Abbott and Costello movies. I've forgotten. I don't remember the name of it.
Morocco, I think.
Do you have it listed?
I think it's something in Morocco or something, or the Foreign Legion or something. It's one of those.
Yes, it is the Foreign Legion. It's Abbott and Costello and the Foreign Legion. I remember.
How was it to work with them?
Oh, well, I didn't. I didn't even get to meet them. No, I was just my scene. It was on like a carousel, or I'm out in the desert in a bathing suit sipping a soda, and I that's all I remembered. I think I saw it once. My children have seen it since then, and they laugh about it. There's Mother as a Mirage. And no, I did a lot of extra work at Universal. I was most fortunate. They were very kind to me. They helped me get started.
Yeah, you're the second actress who's told me that they've worked in so many big things, but never got to meet any of the main actors and actresses. You know, and that boggles my mind because we watch the movie and we automatically think, well, they must have met them. They were in their movie. But I guess the way movies are made with scenes and stuff, I guess you don't have to be there with the actors, right?
Well, if you're not in the scene, if you have no business with them, if you're not in the scene with them, unless they just happen to be hanging around the set, there'd be no reason for me to meet them.
Right.
They're busy doing something else, perhaps, or shooting elsewhere, while I'm doing a small, unimportant scene as that I was as a barrage, there would be no reason for Abbott or Costello to be on the set. It'd be a completely separate shot.
Yeah, we were talking about Rawhide. Oh, yeah, Robert Hedges. That's the kid that was graduated a year before me in Metuchen High School. He played the Spanish kid in Welcome Back, Carter. Thank you, Terry Soto. And Terry Soto says hello.
Juan Epstein, yes. Oh, thank you. Thank you so much. Hello back.
Yeah, he says, we miss her. She needs to get out more, and talk to her fans. And I agree with you, Terry. Terry Soto is a good friend. He's done Comic-Cons and all kinds of things like that. And I wish he'd do another because I'm trying to go to one before I'm too...
Yes, I wish he would, too. Captain Celluloid. I mean, I was back there, I think, in 2008. I'm not quite sure. Is when he was kind enough to invite me to New York, and I had a wonderful time. He's a most gracious host. He's a lovely man. And his whole family, I met everyone. It was one of the nicest conventions I've ever been to. Celeste Holmes was there. Jimmy Hunt was there. That lovely woman, and Betsy Palmer. Oh, I got to meet Betsy Palmer. She perhaps was one of the nicest women I've ever spoken to, and so much fun. What a lively character, and just friendly and sweet to everyone.
Yeah,
we liked her very much. I'm so sorry that she's gone.
Yeah,
and what's lovely about television is that I can look at all the old game shows now that she was on and see her again. And I see them on every night out here in California. There's I Got a Secret, I do believe, is on out here, and I get to see her. And we miss
that's
her.
lovely. Yeah,
it is lovely.
Yeah, I miss and I'm going to get killed by this because but I miss a lot of the older actors and actresses because I think they were a lot more disciplined. I don't know. I talked about this with Julie Adams, who's going to be on next week. And
is she? Oh,
yes.
Oh, we love her. And her son, Mitch. Oh, my goodness. I'm so glad they're going to be on next week. Give them my best.
Yes.
They're lovely. And her book, oh my goodness, she was so kind. She gave me her book that she wrote. It is so interesting and so well written. I hope you have a chance to read it.
Yes, it was funny. I says, well, why write the book? What was the best part of writing the book? She says, finishing it.
Imagine. Oh no, it's a long, interesting story. But I can imagine. Oh, and her pictures, she's a gorgeous creature, just a gorgeous young lady.
Well, you weren't the trash in the backyard either, lady. You were. Wow.
The other day, and I was talking to my son Estefan, and I said, "Good Lord, I was a lot prettier than I thought I was." I said I wasn't a bad-looking young lady at all, not bad looking.
Oh,
and, no. The photographs that I see, the studios knew how to photograph women. They knew how to light them. They knew how to pose them. And I was able to get a Screen Actors Guild card as a stunt girl and get into acting. I was very, very lucky. But I've been working pretty steadily until I ran off to Mexico and married the bullfighter and had 2 boys. I worked all the time. I was most fortunate.
Let me ask you something. You were raised in California. We're going to go over some things because I don't want to put the echo part in and people don't hear it. You were born and raised in Hollywood. Your father was a banker there.
Yes.
You learned to ride horses when you were like 3 years old, right?
Well, I was a little older,
Okay.
but as I said, I was born in Hollywood at the Hollywood Hospital, went to Hollywood High School. My father worked at the Bank of Hollywood on the corner of Hollywood and Vine, probably the most famous corner in the whole world. So no, I'm definitely a Hollywood girl, and but I'm not looking forward to going to Hollywood. Was it Forever Hollywood too soon? That's a cemetery here named Forever Hollywood.
Well, we don't want you to go there. We don't want you to go there.
No, we don't want to go there.
No.
I used to live on Hollywood Boulevard when I was a child. It was quite not a hangout for character actors during the 30s. And my father used to take me to Hollywood Boulevard to see all the celebrities and the fun people like John Carradine reciting Shakespeare, all dressed up in beautiful white tie and tails, and there were just so many wonderful characters. And there was a strange little man called Peter the Hermit who dressed in literally a loincloth. And my father knew him, and as a matter of fact, I have his cane. I don't know why my father inherited this cane, but I had his cane. And there was a very famous paper boy who discovered Jean Harlow. He always claimed that he discovered her, introduced her to a very famous producer who used to buy papers from him, introduced her when her name was, Arlene Carpenter. And she supported him, gave him money. And when Memphis died, he left my father 9,000 books. So we're just quite a Hollywood character on our own.
You went to school with Joan Leslie, whom we just lost.
Yes, I did. A grammar school, a little Catholic grammar school, St. Ambrose. I went to school with Joan Leslie, and then later on at Hollywood High School, I went to school with James Garner and Stuart Whitman. And, there was many people that graduated from Hollywood High, but those are the only... And, the composer, the conductor, Andre Previn. Andre Previn went to also... I was very fortunate to see him at Hollywood High School, not knowing at all at the time how famous he was and how very, very important he was.
Wow. See, the kid that... and I can't think of his name right, was from Welcome Back, Carter, the Puerto Rican kid, Eric. He graduated from my high school. And Jack Walden, who played with I Want to Know What Love Is, with that band, he played the synthesizer. So I came from a very artsy school. I graduated with a lot of, very artsy people. And... When we dropped in the middle of Metuchen, New Jersey, it was like culture shock for me. Coming from a very rural area and having a bit of an accent and all. It was it was hippie haven, and here I was not a hippie. I didn't know anything about that kind of lifestyle.
Well, you said a rural area. What area would that be that you came from?
Well, the family is from Roscommon and Tyrone in Ireland, and we ended up in Piscataway, New Jersey for a while, Elizabeth, New Jersey, but that was when I was real young.
I bet you had an accent, and a charming one, too. I'm sorry you lost it because, I love an Irish accent.
When I get mad, it comes out, and nobody knows it better than Teddy. But it was a different culture for me to drop into that little town, and they were all, my first day in school. This show is about you, but my first day at that high school, because we moved a lot, and my senior year we moved, and nobody would talk to me, and finally this guy who looked like he had a 3-day growth beard on his face in the back of the class said, "They think you're a narc." And I had to ask him, what is...
Just the way your makeup and your hair and your clothes were done. There's nothing like that today. Everyone, my God, they dress so pathetically. And in the 50s, women just were so lovely. And as I said, photographers, they just knew how to photograph us and make us look absolutely extra special.
Yeah, you were absolutely gorgeous. I'm going to play a clip from Rawhide. And this clip from Rawhide is You Are the Princess of an Aztec man comes to, he helps save one of the roadies from the cattle drive. And then he says he's looking for a princess, and he'll find her in a castle surrounded by gold. And he finds you, and you're a salty bit of a barmaid, right?
I am. I remember being in a costume in the bar. Yes, I was. I remember being hired for that. I was interviewed for an awfully long time with the lovely director-producer, and because I was married to Jaime Bravo, the matador in Mexico, I knew a lot of Spanish, and I knew a lot of Mexican customs, and I do believe that is why I was hired, even though I had very bright red hair. They darkened it temporarily with very black, hair dye that washed out, fortunately. But that is exactly why I was hired for that, because of my experience and living in Mexico with the Mexican bullfighter. So I was most fortunate just for that, and I had a lot of fun doing it. My father was, I could never remember his name. Quetzalcoatl, that's his name. It's hard enough to, no wonder I can't remember it. You can hardly pronounce it.
Yeah, I would never be able to pronounce it. Yeah, and I'm going to play a clip from it. It's 2 minutes and 41 seconds because I want them to hear. You think your character just thinks it's all hogwash and just ridiculous that you're doing this. That this guy thinks you're a princess and you're making fun of him. And at first, the actor is kind of the road hand. He's kind of smitten with you a little bit, but he realizes you're interested in another man who's maybe not so savory, but he backs right off. And then all of a sudden, this Aztec man comes in claiming that you're a princess and you're mocking him. So I want to play that. We're going to go to a side room, and I'm going to play
it. It sounds so
is
interesting. I'd like to see it again myself.
Yeah.
I had no idea it was.
It's on YouTube. It's on YouTube. You can watch it on YouTube.
Well, I'll have my son bring that right up to me.
Okay. We're going to take a break, everybody. You're listening to Dreamstream Radio. I'm sorry for the little glitch we had before. I don't know why, but the station is a long way from me, and I'm not moving there. So that's just the way it is, guys. Yes, this is Ann Robinson in Rawhide, one of the most popular shows back in the 50s.
El collar.
No, amigo. No.
No puede ser.
No. He's excited. It's the first time he's seen a girl in this town wearing a gold necklace.
Girl?
By the cashier's cage.
Thinks that girl's a princess?
I better stop him before he gets into trouble.
Here, what are you doing, princesa?
What?
Una molestes, Meidler. Thousand pardons, señorita.
What's the matter with him?
He's confused. He doesn't understand.
¿Es la princesa Jesus?
No.
Mira el collar.
Charlie, get him out of here.
I'll take care of him, Major.
You know this man?
That's right. ¿Es la verdadera princesa, amigo? No, Meidler. You've made a mistake. Está equivocado. Jesus?
He hasn't made a mistake, Senor Fever.
Look, it's been a long, hard day.
Do you remember where he said we'd find her? In a palace, surrounded by gold. And wearing a necklace made of the feather of an eagle, the skin of the serpent,
The spine of a cactus. The only trouble is that's made of gold.
Gold coins. Mexican coins. Each one stamped with the symbol of Mexico. The eagle perched on a cactus with a snake in its claw.
Look, Jesus, you're reaching even to make a coincidence. Come on.
Senorita, who was your mother? Was she from Mexico? Was she Aztec?
Don't know. She died when I was born. I don't know where she was from.
This man, senorita. This man thinks you're descended from the Aztec kings. That you're a princess with holy powers. Daughter of the god Quetzalcoatl.
The who? Well, if I'm the daughter of a god, I must be rich.
No, your mother was terribly poor. And so will you be all your life. But you have the power to help your...
That was Frankie Lane singing Rawhide, and what a voice that man had. Rawhide was one of the top shows in the 50s and 60s, and our guest tonight was on that show. And, I've been very blessed to talk to some very amazing people, from artists to zoologists, scientists, you name it, I've talked to them. But I was very honored to do this interview with Ann Robinson. And everybody who is a sci-fi geek like myself is going to remember her from War of the Worlds with Gene Barry. And when I did this interview, it gave us a little trouble at first. Hopefully, it'll be picture perfect this time, and I'm just going to get into it, and I hope you enjoy this fascinating woman who has a legacy in film and on television that young actors and actresses today, I think, would be very jealous of. So I hope you guys have enjoyed tonight's show. Ann Robinson, welcome to my lair.
Hello.
Hello, Ann. I'm going to try it again. We're live, by the way. We had a bit of a sound glitch, and I need somebody to tell me if the sound is okay now. If it's better, I don't know why it was echoing. But you did Rawhide. Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you, but you were talking about echo chamber because I just heard from my son in Hoboken, New Jersey, and he said he was listening to the Jaime Bravo. He was listening to the broadcast, and he said, yes, it did sound like we were in an echo chamber.
Okay. We're good now. The boss is telling me it's okay. I will edit it and everything, so the podcast will be perfect. So you were on Rawhide, and we were talking about Rawhide and how wonderful an experience it was. I have a clip from Rawhide, and you're a bit of you're a nice girl in it. You're a nice girl, but when this Aztec Indian comes to you claiming to be your father or something, you're a princess, you kind of make fun of him in this clip, right?
Yes. That all sort of confused me, too, that I'm supposed to be descended from the feathered god serpent, with a feather god, Quetzalcoatl. And I never quite understood that, but it was fun to do. I laughed going up the hill and being shot in the back by an arrow, by an Indian with an arrow on my back. I have a photograph of that.
Yeah. Who was the actor that played your father?
Oh, I'm terribly sorry. I do not remember. I haven't seen that show in such a very long time. I don't have it on film. It's been, good God, it's been a long time.
Oh, yeah. I know his face, and I cannot remember it, but that's okay.
Well, I'm sure if I could see I would remember his face also. I remember his name, too, but I don't recall it at all.
Yeah, it was a great series, and I've had Beverly Washburn on, and I've had, a lot of actresses on, and the way you keep alive in between films is by doing TV shows and commercials and whatever pays the bills, right?
Exactly. Well, the whole you want to get your pension. You have to work a certain length of time and make a certain amount of money each year for 10 consecutive years to be eligible for your pension and your medical insurance, and that's worth its weight in gold. And I was very lucky. I worked continuously for exactly about 13 and a half years, in enough time to made enough money and in that length of time to get a pension and your medical insurance with the Screen Actors Guild. I was most fortunate. A lot of people aren't as lucky as I was.
Yeah, I want to apologize to everybody that the first little bit has an echo type of thing. Hopefully I'm going to be able to fix that. But we are talking with Ann Robinson, who is a veteran actress. She is an amazing career. I have to bring it back up again. You've been working steady for what now, 50 years?
Well, let's see. I've got my SAG card in 1949, so I'm sort of a veteran with the Screen Actors Guild. And no, I got that screen. It says my son reminding me. I was most fortunate. I started out as an extra.